right now, Bernie Sanders is speaking live. Let's go right to his comments. Look, he just finished, though. Let's go right to it. Sorry, folks, we got that to the tail end. Bernie Sanders speaking there in Vermont. Of course, he won his home state as well. A little bit earlier, let's see, we're waiting for Joe Biden to actually speak. He is in Los Angeles right now, and so we're monitoring that as well to see what he addressed folks there. California, they have not stopped voting in California. Of course, it's 10:17 Eastern, which means it's 7:17 in California. And so, folks, they're still waiting for Joe Biden to actually come to the podium there. And so we'll be watching those results. Let's right now bring in a new set of panelists who are with us. Joining me just to my left is C.J. Jordan, CEO, Jordan Management Group. Mustafa Santiago Ali, formerly with the EPA. On the far left, we have Michael Brown, former DNC Finance Committee member, and also Kelly Bethea, communication strategist. Folks, I'll start with you, Michael. Any surprises for you tonight?
Yes. I did not know that my law school professor, Joe Biden, would have the kind of night he did. I knew he was going to win the SEC South. I knew he was going to do well there. Clearly, I didn't know he was going to win Minnesota. I don't know how many people thought that. So, yes, I am surprised. I thought it was going to be a little closer. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen yet in California. Texas looks very close, which means the delegates will be split. So I don't know if Texas is anything more than a wash. So I'm very surprised and very pleased. I knew he would do well. I didn't know he was going to do this well.
Kelly?
I'm more surprised at the fact that Warren didn't get her home state. I just feel like you should be able to win your home state. The fact that Warren wasn't able to churn out the delegates and churn out the votes for that is surprising. Everything else is kind of, sort of expected. I feel like Biden was the safe Democrat to vote for, and I feel like a lot of Democrats right now are looking for safety, that keyword electability, and they feel like Biden has that. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that Biden is winning right now, but the fact that Bernie Sanders was able to get his home state, but not Elizabeth Warren, that's troubling to me.
Mustafa, I find it, people keep talking about safe. It's as if people don't think that maybe Biden's better than Sanders. I mean, I don't understand this whole deal about, safe versus risky. If people think that Biden has a better shot at beating Trump, it is what it is.
Yeah, and also, so part of Vice President Biden's platform is about rebuilding the middle class. And if you think about the fact that we've got 46 million people who are living in poverty in our country, that is a message that's going to resonate. Now, yes, other candidates have, used some of that language, but he also has backed it up around infrastructure. And everybody knows that infrastructure is also another opportunity. So I'm not saying that he's safe. What I'm saying is that he's speaking to the heart of America. And it's resonating. It's resonating because people have known him for years. People have seen him, in action in other ways. He's made some mistakes, but also folks feel, it looks like from the way people are voting, that right now he's the best bet.
CJ, I go back to all the people who are talking about after Donald Trump wins, and that is, can you get a Democrat who can appeal to people who in those Rust Belt states? Joe Biden talks about being from Scranton, Pennsylvania. He speaks that language. And you also, again, have very young voters who like Bernie Sanders. But at the end of the day, you can be young and complain all day. But the bottom line is, if you don't vote in the same way the older folks vote, all you're doing is just running your mouth.
I mean, that is absolutely correct. I think when we talk about the Rust Belt, the Midwest states, even though he's from Scranton, Pennsylvania, one of the reasons those individuals, voters, supported President Trump was based on bringing some of those jobs back. And a lot of people also remember that Joe Biden supported NAFTA. And a lot of those individuals lost their jobs. And
I hope those people also remember that it was Obama who was president and Joe Biden was vice president who saved their asses in the auto industry. And not only that, not just the car companies, but the entire supply chain. That was great fear that you would have thousands upon thousands in all of those Rust Belt states who would have gone out of business because of the automotive companies had gone under. They didn't. Remember, that's how Obama was able to nail Mitt Romney, because Romney did not support a bailout of the automotive industry. And so if you're Joe Biden, you get to make that argument as well. But here's the other thing that people don't understand about NAFTA, Michael, and that's the piece here. You talk about NAFTA. NAFTA, some states, they loved it. Some states, they didn't. You take, for instance, Texas, NAFTA was great.
Texas.
It worked for us. Hold tight 1 second. Go to my iPad, please. Joe Biden is now speaking in L.A.
Hello. It's a good night. It's a good night. And it seems to be getting even better. They don't call Super Tuesday for nothing. By the way, this is my little sister, Valerie, and I'm Jill's husband. Oh, no, you switched on me. This is my wife. This is my sister. They switched on me. Folks, it's still early, but things are looking awful good. For those who've been knocked down, counted out, left behind, this is your campaign. Just a few days ago, the press and the pundits had declared the campaign dead. And then came South Carolina, and they had something to say about it. And we're told, well, when you got to Super Tuesday, it'd be over. Well, it may be over for the other guy. Tell that to the folks in Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Minnesota, and maybe even Massachusetts. It's too close to call. We're still waiting for Texas and California, a few other small states to come in. But it's looking good. So I'm here to report we are very much alive. And make no mistake about it, this campaign that will send Donald Trump packing, this campaign is taking off. Join us. For those folks, listen, go to joebiden.com. Sign up, volunteer, contribute if you can. We need you, we want you, and there's a place for you in this campaign. People are talking about a revolution. We started a movement. We've increased turnout. And the turnout's turned out for us. That can deliver us to a moment where we can do extraordinary things. Look. Our agenda is bold, it's progressive, it's a vision where health care is affordable and available to everybody in America. Where we bring drug prices down under control with no more surprise billing. Access to hospitals in rural areas as well as urban areas. Access to care. A bold vision where we invest billions of dollars to find, and I promise you, cures for cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. Standing up to and beating the NRA and the gun manufacturers. And leading the world to take on the existential threat of climate change. I'm going to start by rejoining an outfit I helped put together, the Paris Climate Accord, and we're going to move it a long way. A country where the quality of education will not depend on your zip code. Where we triple funding for low-income school districts, providing raises for teachers, full-time school for 3, 4, and 5 years old, and increasing exponentially the prospects of their success. Free community college, providing credentials for every job of the 21st century. And significant reduction in the cost of going to college and your student debt. If you volunteer, you pay nothing. Folks, we can do this. And let's get something straight. Wall Street didn't build this country. You built this country. The middle class built this country. And unions built the middle class. In the neighborhoods we come from, the three... Well, let's see. We're going to go. Look. The middle class is getting clobbered. The middle class is getting clobbered. Too many people in the neighborhoods that Jill and Val and I grew up in. So they're getting hurt. They're badly hurt. And guess what? They're the places where we come from, many of you come from. It's where we were raised. The people. They're the reason why I'm running. There's the reason why I'm a Democrat in the first place. These are people who build our bridges, repair our roads, keep our water safe, who teach our kids. Look, who race into burning buildings to protect other people, who grow our food, build our cars, pick up our garbage, our streets, veterans, dreamers, single moms. And by the way, every dreamer, have hope because I'm coming and you're not going anywhere. And we're going to provide a pathway for 11 million citizens. If the other guy had voted for well, I shouldn't get into that. I won't get going. Look, the iron workers, the steel workers, the boilermakers, the plumbers, the electrical workers, these are the people that have been forgotten. I agree with you, man. Look, the people Trump forgot, the people I will never forget, and I will always remember. Folks, that's why we need an economy that rewards work, not just wealth. Reestablishes the middle class, and this time brings everybody along. Everybody. Regardless of their race, their ethnicity, whether their gender, their disability, their economic state. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, every stripe. Look, like we did in South Carolina, like we did across America today, like we'll do on all the way to the White House. Look, that's why I was so proud yesterday being embraced by Amy Klobuchar. We won Minnesota because of Amy Klobuchar. And we're doing well in Texas because of Beto O'Rourke. And that's why I was so proud, so incredibly proud to have Mayor Pete's endorsement as well. There's a man of character, intellect, and courage. And by the way, I was proud to be endorsed by Jim Clyburn. Man, he is something else. Look, our campaign reflects the diversity of this party and this nation. And that's how it should be. Because we need to bring everybody along. Everybody. We want a nominee who will beat Donald Trump. But also keep Nancy Pelosi the Speaker of the House. Win back the United States Senate. If that's what you want, join us. And if you want a nominee who's a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, a proud Democrat, an Obama-Biden Democrat, join us. Look, this all starts with a revival of decency and honor and character. Trump has fanned the flames of hate and sought to divide us. He's insulted, demonized, and actually just the way he talks about people. He has not a single sense of empathy. He doesn't have any compassion. No regard for the values that made this country who we are. Not the way you were raised by your moms and dads. He looks at honesty and decency and respect, and he views it as a sign of weakness. He doesn't believe that we're the beacon to the world. He doesn't believe we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. That's why I've said from the moment I announced for this candidacy, we're literally in a battle for the soul of America. Folks, Winning means uniting America.
All right, folks, that was Joe Biden, of course, speaking tonight in Los Angeles. He is obviously extremely pleased with tonight's election results. You saw him rattling off the states that he has won. Tonight, we're still waiting results in other parts of the country, namely Texas, as well as California. You heard Joe Biden say they've declared him the winner in Arkansas. And so the headline on Politico, quite interesting. Biden pulls off stunning Super Tuesday turnaround a little bit earlier in the night. Bernie Sanders addressed his supporters in Vermont. And here's some of what he had to say.
1979.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next President of the United States, Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Vermont. You know, it's a funny thing. 31 years ago today, we won the mayoral race in Burlington, Vermont. And we won that race against all of the odds. Everybody said it couldn't be done. And when we began this race for the presidency, everybody said it couldn't be done. But tonight, I tell you with absolute confidence, we are going to win the Democratic nomination. And we are going to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country. We are going to win. We are going to defeat Trump because we are putting together an unprecedented grassroots, multi-generational, multiracial movement. It is a movement which speaks to the working families of this country who are sick and tired of working longer hours for low wages and seeing all new income and wealth going to the top 1%. It is a movement which says the United States will have health care for all as a human right. It is a movement that says we will bring major reforms in education, making sure that all of our kids can go to college without coming out in debt. Now, what makes this movement unique is we are taking on the corporate establishment. We are taking on the greed of Wall Street, the greed of the drug companies who charge us the highest prices in the world, the greed of the insurance companies, and given the existential crisis of climate change, we are saying to the fossil fuel industry, their short-term profits are not more important than the future of our country and the world. But we are not only taking on the corporate establishment, we're taking on the political establishment. But we're going to win because the people understand it is our campaign, our movement, which is best positioned to defeat Trump. You cannot beat Trump with the same old kind of politics. What we need is a new politics that brings working class people into our political movement, which brings young people into our political movement, and which in November will create the highest voter turnout in American political history. So we're going to beat Trump because this will become a contrast in ideas. One of us in this race led the opposition to the war in Iraq. You're looking at him.
All right, folks. Bernie Sanders, of course, speaking earlier tonight there in Vermont. We're still waiting on the election results. Let's come back to our panel here. When you start breaking down path forward, you heard Joe Biden's speech, Mike, where he talked about I'm a Democrat, long been Democrat, always been Democrat. That's throwing shade towards Senator Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. And I understand Sanders, his campaign, their focus and the motive is to run against the establishment. But if you're going to win a nomination, you're going to need more than your base. And with Buttigieg out, Steyer out, Klobuchar out, Warren loses Massachusetts, then she'll be out. If it comes out to a two-person race, you can't keep running against people who you need to vote for you.
Especially the way the rules are. If no one gets to 1991, it's going to the ballot at the convention. Mm-hmm. And you've got to have what he calls the establishment at the convention, or he will not be the nominee. Right. And so I'm not suggesting that, I know a lot of his supporters think it'll be taken from him again or whatever concerns they have. But the rules are the rules. At the convention, first ballot, you go to your person. As a delegate, you go to your candidate. Second ballot, there's something called, remember the superdelegates from 2016? In the second ballot, the superdelegates come in. And those are the establishment people. And you hear them folks complaining about down ballot races if Sanders is at the top of the ticket. So, Roland, to your point, you're exactly right. I don't know why, especially knowing you may have to go to the convention, you're going to shit on the establishment. You can say and run against them. No one has a problem with that. But to disparage like he's doing, I don't think that's helpful.
Kelly.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like watching Bernie Sanders' speech right now, it just kind of sounded like the opposite end of the spectrum of a Trump speech. He's talking about, we're going against the establishment, we're doing this, we're doing that. Well, Trump was draining the swamp. It's kind of two sides of the same coin. And my concern is if all you're doing is appealing to those on one side of the spectrum. That's why Biden is winning right now, because he's appealing to the middle of that spectrum. And those people are the ones who are really going to vote for you. And that's how Trump even won the 2016 election. He went to the middle of the spectrum with his extreme views, but he went to those people who they felt were forgotten about, and the flyover states, the ones who they felt were ignored. So with Sanders going this route, I just feel like by the time the convention comes around and he's actually going to be needing these superdelegates, like Michael was saying, he's going to have to, backtrack a lot of his words and verbiage in order to get anything done then. Because even though he's winning some big states right now, Biden is still sweeping, for all intents and purposes, and he's going to need a lot more help than just his supporters.
Also, folks, just to let y'all know, we were been live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope all night, but for some reason, CBS issued a block, and all of a sudden, we went offline on Facebook and Periscope. I don't know why. We haven't used a damn thing from CBS at all. So I don't quite understand why they have issued this block. And so we're still live on YouTube. And I'm sending out a notice right now. And again, so what happens is with these algorithms, these people somehow think that they'll try to put a block and you never use their video. We've had that happen. Other folks have done that where they blocked something we did and we didn't even use anything from them. And so we're on it right now. So the folks who are on Facebook and Periscope as well. So people have been sending me, text messages about this. So I have no idea exactly what's going on, but we're certainly trying to fix it now. CJ, look, Donald Trump ran against the establishment. They all fell in line. Republicans are different from Democrats. Democrats, I'd say, hold grudges more so than Republicans. If you're Senator Bernie Sanders, you're going to have to figure out a way how to increase your support. You look at tonight, again, Maine, where Biden is up slightly. You can say everybody's against me. You can yell, scream all day, but the whole goal is to win.
Right. The whole goal is to win. I think Bernie has to do two things. One, he knows that Hillary took a shot at him. We know that Perez hadn't been in the Democratic chair long in a sense of understanding the rules of engagement. And a lot of Hillary's people are in charge of the committees going into the convention. And I was sharing with Mike earlier, I said, where is Sidney and hard-knuckle Rahm Emanuel going to be? They're going to be in the room whipping those votes to ensure that Joe Biden gets over the finish line. And so Bernie needs to figure out who can he appeal to that's part of the establishment, where can he peel off a few of those superdelegates? Because at the end of the day, Joe Biden is going in with Jim Clyburn, he's going in with Nancy Pelosi, he's going in with Rahm Emanuel, Sidney Blumenthal, probably President Clinton, and all he's going to have is Elizabeth Warren if she decides not to release her delegates until the convention. So he's got to figure out his math.
Mustafa.
I mean, here's what he has to do. One, he's got to get young people to actually come out and vote. They can use the energy and the innovation, but they've got to actually mobilize and get them to actually sit down and make sure that they're actually voting. The second part is that he has work to do with the black community. So people made some assumptions before, that there would be a fairly significant population of our own people who would actually, be down with Bernie. That, unfortunately, doesn't seem to be happening at this time. So he's got work to do there. The other part that he has to do is that he has to get working class white folks, some of those who voted for Trump, to actually believe that some of the things that he is moving forward on, that they see themselves reflected in that. And if he's not able to do that, then unfortunately, the base that he's working with will not grow large enough for him to be competitive moving forward.
Let's flip the script. Let's talk now about what Biden has to do moving forward.
A lot.
Yes,
Quite a bit.
very much so.
Not only, I know the last time I was on, we were talking about the 1994 crime bill. That's just, tip of the iceberg and what he's going to have to address. He's going to have to address why some things in the Obama administration didn't come to fruition. He's going to have to address while he was in the Senate, why he supported some things and, didn't support some other things. With the black community, especially, millennials and younger, he's going to have to explain how present circumstances are the way they are, low-key, because of him. And I don't know how he's going to be able to do that in such a way that is convincing to the voters that he needs in order to win the election.
So Biden has to do some other things. One, Biden has to begin to raise significant amounts of resources to be able to compete, because he's not just competing. And yes, we are focused right now on this primary, this part of the election, but he also has to begin to really stack dollars for what's going to come if he is the nominee. He also has to get stronger on some of the other issues that he really isn't that strong on at the moment. He's got to get stronger on climate change.
Yes.
He's also going to have to figure out a way to build a bridge between the folks who are supporting Bernie, who want Medicare for all, and where he currently stands on health care. And, he still, I think, also has a lot of work to do with Latinx community.
Yes.
Many of our Latinx brothers and sisters have found the messages that Bernie has been sharing as ones that resonate with them. So I think he has to figure out how he's going to also do better in that space.
But here's the deal. Here's the deal, Michael. The reality is, if you're Joe Biden, there is no place to go on Medicare for all. Labor unions are very much against losing their health care benefits. Joe Biden says, look, if he believes in expanding the Affordable Care Act, he understands that got passed. How difficult it is to pass health care. And so I think what Joe Biden does is continue his position because we saw what happened with Elizabeth Warren. She supported Medicare for all. She got nailed when they kept demanding a price, how much it's going to cost, and she fell for it and gave them a number and she hasn't recovered from that. She's losing her home state. It's probably going to drop out tomorrow. Then you have, of course, you have Senator Kamala Harris. Initially was for Medicare for all, then she flip-flopped. She wasn't for Medicare for all. Boom, downfall there. And I think certainly, look, Congressman Jim Clyburn made a point that there's going to have to be some expansion in terms of changing of Joe Biden's campaign. I think what's going to happen here, Mike, is that money's going to come in, but also, to your point, Mustafa, there's some things they know they're going to have to do in order to move forward. And so I think you're going to see that happen. But in many ways, they were hampered by lack of resources, but also they were just treading water. I read a number of stories where Biden was not even reaching out to a number of elected officials, had not heard from them for months. And so now with this level of momentum, now you're going to have to run a much sharper campaign, because now it has to be laser-like focused now that you have survived and now are back in the game and competitive in the sense that you could actually win it.
Absolutely. And clearly, of course, everyone, I think, has to be sharper, but I wouldn't, to Mustafa's point, I don't know if I would hold my breath that he's going to change positions. Sure. He is lockstep because, frankly, the previous president isn't going to allow him to change position, at least on the health care front. And then there's some nice terrain coming up for the vice president. Still haven't had Pennsylvania yet, which he's going to win. Still haven't had Ohio yet, which he's going to win. Still haven't had Florida yet, which he's going to win. So the terrain for him, and so, they probably have their mechanics, but I think, as Clyburn said, needs to sharpen it a little bit. But I wouldn't. I think you're probably right about the climate change debate, and maybe now with resources you can bring some better experts in to help you understand and sharpen that message. But on healthcare, maybe you can use the word universal, which means everyone gets covered under the Obama plan. And for folks that don't want to go on the Obama plan, we'll make sure you're covered, maybe through Medicare.
I just think, Kelly, look, at the end of the day, look, I get the whole back and forth on health care, but the fact that multiple presidents have been trying to get health care, and it finally got passed, barely. So this whole idea that you're going to now go from that, first of all, you get Affordable Care Act, Trump is trying to get rid of it, and And now you're going to go from that to, okay, we're going to go something just totally different. No, I think Biden is being very realistic about it. I'm not dismissing what Sanders says about the cost of health care and how these companies are making profits, but I'm also looking at the hardcore reality. You can be Sanders and make the argument. How do you get it through Congress?
And that is going to be the nail in the coffin for the Sanders campaign, because I don't think you can at this juncture, because it's so expensive, because we are so divisive as a country that, frankly, Congress is just split. It is splintered, and there's no way right now for them to come together on and compromise on any bill, let alone something as big as health care. Like you said, Biden is doing what he's going to do, what he has been doing, which is really just towing the line. Now, is that my personal preference? Not necessarily. But if you're going to win this election, that seems like what you're going to have to do, because we, the Democrats, need those votes that Trump got in 2016. And those votes initially went to Obama in 2012. So it's like we're trying to get people back to our side. And how do you do that? You can't go to the extreme side of the spectrum in order to get people who are in the middle.
Now, CJ, look, you're running against a guy who wants to get rid of it completely and actually has no replacement. I've yet to hear it, and I'm still waiting.
Well, I think here's the thing. Michael talked about Ohio, and with Nina Turner coming from Ohio, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on her to deliver Ohio for.
Okay.
No, I understand.
You can go on to the next point.
No, allow me to finish.
Hold on. Deliver Ohio when? In the primary?
Yeah, in the primary.
Oh, gotcha. Because first of all, Democrats ain't win Ohio in general.
Right. So
you don't lose by 450,000 votes in 2016. All of a sudden, you come back. I'm with American Priorities PAC. I wouldn't spend a dime. I love all y'all people in Ohio. But Marsha Fudge and Joyce Beatty, I love y'all too. I wouldn't spend a dime in Ohio after you got drubbed. I would actually put that money, I would put that money in North Carolina. Now that, of course, Democrats have been able to change the game there, beat back Republicans with voter suppression.
Arizona.
Right.
But hell no, you don't lose by 450,000 votes.
But as I was saying,
100,000? All right, we can talk. Not 450,000. Go ahead.
But again, coming to the primary, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Nina Turner to deliver Ohio for Bernie Sanders versus Joe Biden. And so we're going to see what that looks like. But she's under tremendous amount of pressure. Cuyahoga County, Northeast Ohio, tremendously brings and delivers the state of Ohio. I don't know how Joe is going to do. Even with Tim Ryan, a former presidential candidate coming out of Youngstown, I don't think he's going to be able to deliver all of Northeast Ohio for Joe.
But here's the deal, though. If you are Mustafa, if you're Biden, again, what's going to happen next is you're going to step back. If you're the Biden camp, you're the Sanders camp. I'm recently in those two. Warren is losing her state. She's going to drop out tomorrow, and the product's going to be tonight. Okay. Second, Mike Bloomberg. I won't even give Bloomberg to next week. I'll go back to my previous prediction. Bloomberg is going to be gone tomorrow, no later than Thursday, because you can't look at these results and say, how in the world do you justify staying in? And so if you're in the Biden camp and the Sanders camp, you now look at the map. You say, where am I likely to win? Where am I likely to come in a close second? Where am I likely going to get blown out? And you're going to focus your energies on those places. Sanders has the money where he can run everywhere. But the question, though, is, do you do that, or do you lock in and say, where can I win big and run up a delegate number? Because that's the real issue. Running close means nothing. You want to run up delegate numbers.
Well, Bloomberg can play a huge role in helping to make sure, if he chooses to make sure that Biden has the infrastructure that's going to be necessary moving forward. And it's interesting because Biden hasn't had the infrastructure and he's been as successful as he has. But I think that,
Name ID.
Yeah, it's name ID. And it also helps if you go ahead and start that process now and you become the nominee, then it puts you in a better position, as we move toward the general election. The other part with, some of the things that he, needs to focus on is, in the middle part of the country, people are caring about jobs. They're caring about opportunities of advanced manufacturing in places like Ohio and Michigan and other places. So I think he has, some background there that will be helpful as he moves forward.
All right, folks, let's do a reset. And so tonight, Super Tuesday, it has been quite the interesting night. This is the headline. Go to my iPad, please, from Politico. Biden pulls off stunning Super Tuesday turnaround live analysis. You see right there where they have Biden winning in Alabama, Arkansas, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Virginia. He's leading in Maine. Then you have Sanders, Colorado, Utah, Vermont. He's leading in Texas. Also, we're waiting for the results in California. If you're the Sanders campaign, you're really focused on Texas and California because they have the two biggest block of votes. But if you're the Biden campaign, what you're saying is, I was supposed to get destroyed on Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
I was supposed to get run out of the race on Super Tuesday. When you can sit here and say you won 8 of the 15 contests on Super Tuesday, that's when you say, new ball game, now let's play. That's what this is. Again, Sanders folks are going to tout the fact that he's going to win the 2 big states, but Colorado, Utah, Vermont, small states. And so the question, though, can Biden, if he loses Texas and California, can he still perform well enough that Sanders does not have a huge lead? If I break down what took place in these states, Biden won big in Alabama, won big in Virginia, won by double digits in North Carolina. And so Sanders needs that kind of blowout to create some distance between him and Biden.
And that blowout's not going to occur in Texas. It's going to be close, at least on the delegate count. I guess California, we won't know. What do they say? They have 30 days to count all their votes. I guess we'll know something tomorrow morning.
Yeah, because they also they changed their whole deal, and also the whole independent vote as well. So it's going to be a number of votes. So frankly, looking at tonight's results, that could absolutely change. In fact, we saw that in the previous 2018 in the statewide races, where as they kept counting, that lead kept dwindling in some of those races, and so it's going to be probably a week or 2 at best before we get a real sense of what happened in California.
And so he has to run the numbers up. If he's supposed to win like he's supposed to win big in California, he has to run those numbers up, at least to compete with what these final results will be for Super Tuesday for Biden.
And let's hope Biden can remember tomorrow that he did win those 8 states.
That's rude.
He's going to remember.
I'm pretty sure he's going to remember.
Well, I'm sure he'll remember that. I'm sure he'll also probably remember that the coronavirus is not a hoax.
Not at all.
And he never said that.
Yeah, okay. All right. But he sure as hell trying to wonder, could we use a flu shot for the same virus? And his own scientist like, no, player, we can't do that. So trust me, if we were talking about remembering stuff, trust me, Trump really don't want to have that conversation with anybody on remembering stuff.
I feel like, Oh, no, I was just going to say in general, if this entire night is just further proof that polls really do not matter. What matters is people voting. And I really hope that people do not take the polls into such consideration as they did in 2016 and really were beholden to them in terms of what the results were going to be, because that's how we got Trump. That's how we were so surprised that Trump happened, and everybody was like, what happened? And
no, you just had a bad candidate.
Well, what happened is that people voted. Period. Like whether you want to blame Russia or any other type of scandal, what have you, the fact of the matter is that people voted. And they voted the way that they were going to vote all along, but they weren't considered in these polls. So, just take that into consideration. And Biden, I feel like, knew that, and that's why he's still in this race.
Folks, we were talking also about the other races that are taking place. There were lots of down ballot races all across the country. One of the things that we're looking at is what is going to happen in Alabama for the United States Senate race. And so I'm going to AL.com, which is, of course, the Alabama website. Let me see if I can pull this up. We're watching those races. Quite interesting. Of course, former Senator Jeff Sessions, who served as Attorney General under Donald Trump, who got cussed out by Trump in that job. Of course, he running for his old seat running against Tommy Tuberville, of course, a former football coach at Alabama. And of course, he just, let's just say, interesting in his own right with some of the nonsense that he has been saying. This is according to here. Do you see my computer, please? If you do, go ahead and go to it. If you see this right here, this is AL.com with 66.73% of the vote in. Tommy Tuberville has 154,860 votes. That's 33.16% of the vote, compared to Jeff Sessions with 146,392 votes, or 31.35%. Roy Moore.
Did Trump put his finger on the scale?
Actually, he did not.
No.
Roy Moore, of course, who lost to Doug Jones in the special election in Alabama. He is a distant fourth with 36,246 votes, or 7.76%. You got Bradley Byrne, former congressman who's running. He picked up 116,631. And so I'm not quite sure in Alabama if you get the most votes, you win. There's not going to be will it be a runoff?
It'll be a runoff.
All right. So, again, Jeff Sessions trying to reclaim his old seat. I might remember one of his first ads he came out was kissing Trump's butt, and it was like, damn, man, dog you and just stomp you and talk about you like a dog, and you still kissed his butt. Then again, you got Senator Ted Cruz. The man talked about his wife, called her ugly.
Rubio.
Accused his dad of killing Lee Harvey Oswald, and then he still kisses his butt. I don't know what's up. I don't know what y'all Republicans drink. I'm just letting you know right now. If I ran against some dude and dude talked about my wife like that, I'd be trying to find every chance to whoop his ass, even with Secret Service. And I damn sure wouldn't be sitting here kissing his butt. So maybe that's how things roll for Republicans or Democrats, but I'm a black man. And you talk about my wife like that? Nah, player, we ain't being friends at all. At all. That's just roll. I'm just saying. That's just roll.
You're not the only one.
It's going to be, I want to go to one of the things. Let's talk about North Carolina. You're going to have Tom Tillis, Cal Cunningham running against each other. Democrats have gotten behind Cunningham. Again, things have changed in North Carolina. More Mondays, the work they've been doing there. They now have flipped that state. Democrats now control the state Supreme Court. Roy Cooper, he won tonight in the primary election for governor. They now have been able to beat back a lot of the voter suppression, the crazy things happening there. The courts have been ruling against the districts. North Carolina's going to be a hell of a lot more competitive state. Obama won North Carolina by 14,100 votes in 2008. That state, and there are more registered Democrats in that state than there are Republicans. And so I think this cycle around, Republicans are going to do a hell of a lot more work in North Carolina, Michael, if they want to hold on to the state.
Absolutely. And this is specifically where who is at the top of the ticket matters. And if it's, Vice President Biden, you have a better shot, I think. Not to say that Senator Sanders wouldn't. It's a little different maybe in North Carolina. You have a lot of universities there where clearly Senator Sanders does well with young people. Obviously, to Mustafa's point, you got to get them out to vote. But North Carolina is in play. Frankly, there are only a few states that are not in play in this election. I think everything is going to be in play. He's still 45 is still going to be very difficult to beat. But the fact that these other states like Arizona is in play.
Virginia's
I can't even
still
believe
in play. I don't even.
Virginia. Well, I think Virginia's blue now, but I understand what you're saying. Texas.
It's a reddish purple.
I think Texas may be in play. I'm not saying we win Texas, but it's in play.
Right.
And that clearly depends on who's at the top of the ticket.
Exactly.
So I think, I think Tillis.
I'm
Tillis
from
may lose the
Texas.
seat.
I vote in Texas. Texas is not in play.
And you always say that. I know.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm telling you.
I don't think we spend a lot of money.
The only way. Look. This is the fundamental problem in Texas. Hillary Clinton, Obama run in 2008, significant enthusiasm. I'm talking about major enthusiasm. Texas Democrats said, wow, we finally can rebuild the party. Everybody forgets that before John Tower was elected United States Senator in Texas, Republicans had not held a statewide seat in Texas since Reconstruction. It was a Democratic state.
Get Ann Richards.
Ann Richards comes in. She gets beat by George W. Bush in the next election cycle. Republicans win every statewide seat. Republicans have controlled every statewide seat in Texas for the last 20 years. And so what Democrats have done, they've come into Texas, they've come into Houston, into Dallas, into Austin, raised millions of dollars, left with those money bags, and did nothing in the state. They thought after 2008 Obama was going to mobilize and organize. Did not happen. The issue that you have there is that there are 2 million eligible but unregistered Latinos in Texas. And when you look at what Democrat billionaires have not done is do what Republican billionaires have done. If you are a Tom Steyer, if you are a Michael Bloomberg, if you are any one of these other billionaires out there, you actually say, I am going to invest anywhere from $50 to $100 million in Texas. We're going to move 1,000 or 2,000 people into that state or hire them. They're going to live there for the next 4 years. And their job is to live in those communities, become ingrained in those communities, and to register Latinos to vote. If you hit half that number, if you register 1 million Latinos out of the 2 million who are eligible to get registered, and the break in Texas is around 70-30. Republicans win statewide by 200, 225,000. The margins have shrunk, not only because 500,000, the reason you also say it's in play, is because 500,000 new people moved in Texas every single year. So what's interesting is Republicans also can blame themselves because they've been spending lots of time, Rick Perry did it and Greg Abbott, they spend lots of time wooing California companies to move their headquarters to Texas. They forget those are California voters. And so what's happening is Republicans have been getting killed in the suburbs. But if you look at the split 70-30, you take 1 million. You're losing about 200,000 votes. If you put 1 million new Latinos on the poll the rolls, and let's say it's a 65-35 split, you can wipe out Republicans. But they got to be able to do it. And the problem is Democrats have not been willing to do that. And so you're not going to win state. And this is where Reverend William Barber and I agree 100%. If you want to win, you've got to invest in the places where people are. Then you got to go talk to them. You got to reach them. You got to touch them. You got to feel them. And then that's how you do it. You can't just send a bunch of white kids in with PDAs and iPads 6 weeks before the election and somehow think that you're going to be able to register people and get them out to vote. That ain't going to happen. And so that's where Democrats should be thinking in terms of how to utilize resources, Mustafa. Because otherwise, look, if you keep playing the same old game, you're going to have the same old results.
Yeah. Well, going back to North Carolina, it is a prime example about the power of the people, especially what the Poor People's Campaign has done. They've been able to mobilize, lower income white communities, African American communities, and a number of other folks who are in that space and get them focused on an agenda and keep them anchored to it. And then continue to build month after month after month. So if we could get, parties that actually do the right thing and make those investments and not just do these drive-bys that continue to happen, but actually spend real time, then, we can make real change actually happen.
Folks, we're still waiting on, again, some of these results that are coming down across the country. What we are looking at, again, more than 1,300 delegates at stake tonight. You have 15 states. It has been a really, really good night for former Vice President Joe Biden. It has been, for Bernie Sanders, it will get better once Texas and California come in. I do want to take the time right now. I'll start with you, Kelly. I think this is the end of the Elizabeth Warren campaign. I think more than anybody else in the last 3 months, she has been, actually even longer than that. I mean, she has been nailing it when it comes to issues of race. I think when you look at, if you had to sit here and compare all of the different agendas across the board, I think she beats all of them. I think she has been able to articulate a message that makes a hell of a whole lot of sense. We were there in South Carolina on Wednesday when John Legend held a rally at South Carolina State. Then, of course, later in Charleston, we were there in Charleston. You see right there, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, she has really been out there. But losing tonight in her home state of Massachusetts to Joe Biden and then coming in third to Bernie Sanders, I don't know how you can make the argument that you should stay in this race if you cannot win your own state. If you go to my computer here, folks, you'll see the numbers here. Jesus, Boston.com. Y'all need to get y'all a new graph. That's awful. I'm just saying, that's awful. But with 61.9% of the ballots in, Elizabeth Warren is at 20.5%, Bernie Sanders is at 27.1%, Joe Biden 34%. You can't stay in the race, you can't win your home state, especially when you're sitting United States Senator.
It's really disappointing, mainly because, like you said, she has been touching she's been just the checklist, everything that Black people need, Latino people need, other people of color need, elderly people need, every demographic, like the mantra, she has a plan for that, she really does. And it's viable. And there's data out there that's saying that it works. So the fact that she's not higher in the polls, to me, reflects how, frankly, scared the Democrats are of Trump becoming president for a second term, because that also shows to me that low-key they don't necessarily want Biden, they just feel like he will beat Trump. And there has to be more to the Democratic Party's mission other than beating your opponent. It has to be based on policy. It has to be based on ideology. And Warren had all three. She had the ideology, she had the policy, and if there was an engine, being people, the grassroots, DNC, everybody, like they're going behind Biden. If they were going behind Warren like this, because she is the triple threat in that regard, she would be in Biden's position right now. But for whatever reason, I have my theories on that, but that's a whole another.
Well, sexism still exists.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you know.
If you didn't want to say it, I'll say it for you.
Thank you. Well, I wasn't going to say it because it's going to take a lot longer than just 30 seconds. But at the same time, those reasons are valid, and it's just incredibly disappointing that Democrats are running scared because of somebody that they don't want in office.
I think that, again, I concur with you when you talk about sexism. But also, I go back to what I said earlier. Michael, sometimes you got to know when to run.
When to?
When to run. I fundamentally believe.
Last time.
And look, folks, understand something. I had Senator Elizabeth Warren on my Washington Watch show when she was over the one of those accountability task force. I mean, she was killing Tim Geithner. She was sparring with Joe Biden when it came to the bankruptcy laws. There was a movement of people trying to draft her to run in 2016. And she opted not to run. And I think, frankly, Senator Elizabeth Warren fell for it was Hillary's turn.
Yes.
There's no such thing as somebody's turn. You either earn it or you don't. I think she was at her hottest in 2016. She was at her zenith. She should have run then. Senator Bernie Sanders was an unknown entity nationwide. He became the anti-Hillary voice. He was able to build his frankly, infrastructure on that. She now runs in 2020. She's now running against a strong progressive, some might say even stronger than her, who now has an infrastructure behind him and money behind him. And so she's been suffering as a result. She drops out tomorrow, which I think she will. She's also the last woman. It will leave 3 white men in the race, 178, 178, 177. And I still believe that Michael Bloomberg, looking at the results tonight, Michael Bloomberg drops out, leaving Sanders and Biden. I just think that was the case. I think she ran 4 years too late.
And then, politics, like life, timing has a lot to do with it. Luck, and you and I have talked about that. I agree with you. I think her time was last time, but I think you're right. The Hillary machine, Bill Clinton machine, it was probably tough for a junior senator to say, I can compete with that. And I'll wait, and I'll do it in whatever the timing was then. It's unfortunate, because I like her, too. I think she hits a lot of the points you need to hit. She's a good candidate. She You're right. She checks all the boxes.
And my thing is, what are these debates going to look like
Without
her there?
Yeah.
Because she was the only one actually touching on any issue. Like, she was not afraid of these moderators answering these questions. She actually tackled them head on, direct answers. If she didn't know, she said she didn't know. And if she knew, she said what her knowledge was. Biden hasn't done that. Sanders hasn't done that. Bloomberg definitely hasn't done that, whether he's going to stay in the race or not. So I just feel like it's going to be another political show as opposed to a real debate that will actually highlight why these people deserve to be president.
Before I go to you, go to my iPad, please. This was a photo posted by Hewitt Zolars, Rice University author. This is a photo from the campus of Texas Southern University at 8:30 a.m. You can see, folks, the lines there. Do you see? So apparently he said that I don't know what the hell's going on this campus, but he said in his tweet, he said the line at TSU Houston for the Texas Democratic primary, 30 minutes after the polls close, the line continues inside the building. From the front doors to the voting booth took me over 2 hours in line, and nobody in this picture has made it that far yet.
That's great.
Somebody else tweeted here. Let me pull this up. I want to go to it. Read the comments here.
Well, you're looking for Mustafa. Can you imagine the general with Trump on the ballot? The line is going to be longer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at some of the comments here. One woman said, student and residents of the neighborhood surrounding TSU are stuck in this line. I will hit 4 hours at 10 p.m. This person here says, I will note that this seems to be a widespread problem across Houston. Go to the tweet. I've heard similar from some affluent white neighborhoods. Do this here, Jackie. Get County Commissioner Rodney Ellis on the phone, please, so I can find out what's happening in Houston with these lines. Some might say that's a part of the energy as well, but this is an issue when you talk about 1,200 voting locations closed all across the South in the past 8 or so years, according to the report from the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. But it also points to, again, why you kind of got to have an understanding of what's going to happen, anticipate you have enough voting booths so you avoid this. There is no reason in the world folks should be in line for 4 hours and they're still waiting.
We got to just strengthen our voter infrastructure. We know what voter suppression looks like. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's in your face. And we've seen polling locations close. We've seen them moved, all these various things. But folks should get prepared. People want to vote. People have been wanting to vote for months and months and months now because they want to make sure that they are sharing with the country what their expectations are, what their views are of these candidates. So I appreciate the energy, and we need to continue to push to make sure that these types of situations are not in the general. There's a lot we can do in that space. We got a lot of rich folks, who say that they want to continue to support some things. So, folks can throw some dollars.
I will ask you, CJ, what is your party going to do about these long lines? And when it comes to voting, are Republicans going to stand in the way of folks voting, or are they going to keep supporting the closing of voting locations, shutting them down? What y'all going to do?
No, we're not going to stand in the way of people voting. I think here's the thing that we have to do in educating individuals. When I was active in the NAACP doing voter registration and education, one of the things that we always made sure when we was going through reapportionment in Ohio was educating the voter that said, look, when you look at this particular precinct and you have low voter turnout, it then goes back to the state secretary of state, and if we continue to have low voter turnouts in those precincts, then it allows for them when they're sitting down and say, hey, let's concise, let's close, let's move, let's change. That's what happens.
But CJ,
I don't say it's fair, or I'm just saying what we did for education.
They're not cutting booths where there's low turnout. They're actually cutting locations where there's been high turnout. Again, the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights has documented more than
I've not seen it yet.
First of all, we did it on the show several times. More than 1,200 locations have been cut. Republicans have been slashing early voting locations. In North Carolina, where the federal judges ruled that they had surgical-like precision targeting black voters, they asked the question, when are black people voting early in North Carolina? 70% of African Americans in North Carolina vote early the first week. So what do Republicans in North Carolina do? They literally limited early voting to one location for the first few weeks in North Carolina, then expanded. It was a targeted effort. That has happened all across the country, including Texas. And so I don't understand, when is the Republican Party going to stop being the party of voter suppression?
I don't think it's a party of voter suppression. I think we need to educate
so you don't
folks to
think
turn
so?
out to vote.
First of all, you keep saying educate people.
And so that means, based on that line, a lot of people are enthused, came out to support their particular candidate.
You keep saying educate. Go to my iPad.
They came out to support their candidate.
This is a college campus. I think they are educated.
And I know, and that's what I said, and we continue to educate. And I also said
that's not continuing to educate.
You cut me off, and what I stated after that, I said based on your pictures, it showed that they were enthused to come out to support their particular candidate.
No, actually, what that picture shows, there were not enough damn booths in the room to vote. That's what that picture shows. I'm over here looking right now at a previous tweet. Somebody who voted.
There were lines like that in 2000. When I was down in Miami, guess what? They had a lot of voting booths in there, and people were standing in line because I was with Tom Joyner when he came out.
Okay, first and foremost, I'm from Houston. This is in 3rd Ward. Black folks live, okay, in 3rd Ward, Houston. That's where TSU is, right across the street.
I see white people.
Yeah, I know that, but there are white people who live in, it's called gentrification. What you have is across the street from TSU, the CUNY homes. Yeah. Right down the street, literally 3 blocks from TSU, is the University of Houston. I'm reading one of the folks on here who also said that there were only 10 booths at the University of Houston voting campus, and there were similar lines as this here. Again, this to me is what we're seeing. We saw this crap where they shut down places in Maryland in 2018 and 16 as well, where there were people who were in line for 3 and 4 and 5 hours. I just don't understand why you have the games that are played in this country. Let me be real clear. When it comes to voting, to me, that's not an issue of Republican or Democrat, but the fact of the matter is the Republican Party is the party of voter suppression, and unfortunately, we see these things all across the country, and that, to me, is a problem, and that I think we're going to see the same problem come November.
And the Democratic Party is a party with absentee ballots that cheat out of Cleveland, like in Cleveland, Ohio.
What?
That's why you have federal marshals.
Stop. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. What'd you just say? Did you just say absentee ballots?
Most definitely I did.
Okay. Would you like to talk about who was indicted in North Carolina for throwing away absentee ballots? Which party did that? In fact, the North Carolina Secretary of State had to actually throw out...
And I remember the federal marshals going into Ohio
had to throw out the results of the election. Even Republicans had to concede that Republicans were actually harvesting ballots and throwing them away. You had
Cleveland, Ohio.
1 second. You had Democrat counties where more Democrats requested absentee ballots.
Cleveland.
Yet when the election showed up, there were more Republican absentee ballots than anybody else.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Where?
Cleveland, Ohio.
No, where? Show me when.
2000, 2008. 2000.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about 2 years ago. I ain't even talking about 20 years ago. I'm talking about I'm literally talking about 2 years ago. I'm talking
Marshall's been in Cleveland, Ohio since Kim Blackwell was Secretary of State.
Okay, but
hilarious.
But CJ, even if that is true, and I don't have the facts to back that up, and it appears that you don't as well. But
no,
even
I do.
But even if it were true, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
I ain't say it did. But I just cited
then what's the point?
I cited Ohio based on what he was talking about North Carolina. I gave him a Democratic
But voter
example.
suppression is voter suppression. And Roland's point, my understanding, how I understand it to be, is that it is what it is. It doesn't have, party lines, but Republicans do have the tendency and the propensity to use voter suppression. And
Democrats have the propensity to stuff those absentee ballots in those boxes.
Based upon what?
Unions.
What evidence?
Ohio,
what
Cleveland.
Evidence? Whatever. You keep saying Ohio, Cleveland. Where's the evidence?
Federal marshals.
No, where's the evidence?
2008.
Pull it up.
Well, here.
Pull it up.
So someone in your own party came to the NAACP's the primary, not the primary, excuse me. Bill Weld came. He spoke at the NAACP's forum that they did, and he talked about voter suppression. So maybe what we need to do is help Republicans to actually have leadership that understands that these problems are happening and that they needed to be addressed so that true democracy can actually help it.
Henry, go to my computer, please. Folks, if you want to get more information, what I'm talking about, where I deal with facts, go to Democracy Diverted. This is actually go to civilrights.org. And so it's Democracy Diverted. You see it here, Democracy Diverted, polling place closures and the right to vote. If you see this map here, you will see on this map the intensity of the polling places. You can actually click this map and it will show you the population where those voting booths have been closed. You will see down here you see this grid here where the darkest part, there was a 50+ decrease in voting booths, 25 to 50% decrease, 1 to 10% decrease. And according to their analysis, 1,200 voting locations all across the South took place. And when did all of this happen? After the Supreme Court ruled Shelby v. Holder, which gutted significant parts of the Voting Rights Act, an act Republicans refuse to fix. They refuse to fix. Kelly, go ahead.
I don't know whether you're about to wrap this segment up, but when it comes to voter suppression, when I see that picture, that's what I see. I don't see necessarily enthusiasm. I see the fact that several voting and polling centers closed, and this is the constituents' only solution to go vote.
And in fact, that was in Texas. Can we go back to my computer here? According to the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, Texas, a state where 39% of the population is Latino and 12% is African American, has closed 750 polling places since Shelby, by far the most of any state in our study. 5 of the 6 largest closures of polling places are in Texas, with 74 closures. Dallas County, which is 41% Latino, 22% African American. The second largest closure of polling places, followed by Travis County, which is Austin, Texas, 34% Latino. Harris County, which is Houston, 42% Latino, 19% African American. 52 polling closures. Brazoria County, 13% African American, 30% Latino. Tied with Natchez County, 63% Latino. And so, what y'all clearly realize is that these are minority counties. Many, but not all of these polling places were closed as a part of a statewide effort to centralize voting into, quote, county-wide polling places. The effort slashed the number of voting locations, but allowed voters to cast ballots at any election day polling place. Without Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, we cannot assess the impact these mass closures have on communities of color. Michael?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how, elections have consequences, and elections are going to continue to have consequences relative to voter suppression. I find it interesting, and see, I know that, we can point out whether Democrats have done things badly and voter suppression on the Republican side. What I find interesting is Republicans seem to take pride on voter suppression.
Right.
Oh, hell yeah.
They like
gloat.
it. They brag about it.
Yeah.
They say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put police at polling places. We're going to make you show 8 forms of ID before you can vote.
In some of the places, they've literally moved the voting location to police stations.
Yeah. So,
What the hell is that?
Voter suppression to me is it's right in your face. They're not even in the shadows with it.
All right, folks, going to go to a break. We're going to do a reset. We come back. We'll give you the state of the presidential race. We'll also talk with some members of Congress. Congressman Bobby Scott, one of the folks who endorsed Vice President Joe Biden, who won big in Virginia. We'll look to talk to him. We're also going to try to get some people in Texas on the line to find out what's happening with the voting sites there. I'm also reaching out to folks in Dallas to see what's going on there as well. You're watching Super Tuesday coverage right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I'll be back in a moment. You want support? Actually, support Roland Martin Unfiltered. Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. All right, so a lot of y'all are always asking me about some of the pocket squares that I wear. Now, Robert don't have one on. Now, I don't particularly like the white pocket squares. I don't like even the silk ones. And so I was reading GQ magazine a number of years ago, and I saw this guy who had this pocket square here, and it looks like a flower. This is called a shibori pocket square. This is how the Japanese manipulate the fabric to create this sort of flower effect. So I'm going to take it out and then place it in my hand so you see what it looks like. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And so I tracked down, it took me a year to find a company that did it. And so they make these about 47 different colors. And so I love them because, again, as men, we don't have many accessories to wear, so we don't have many options. And so this is really a pretty cool pocket square. Now, what I love about this here is you saw when it's in the pocket, you know, it gives you that flower effect like that. But if I wanted to also, unlike other, because if I flip it and turn it over, it actually gives me a different type of texture. And so therefore it gives me a different look. So there you go. So if you actually want to get one of these shibori pocket squares, we have them in 47 different colors. All you got to do is go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So it's RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All you got to do is go to my website and you can actually get this. Now, for those of you who are members of our Bring the Funk fan club, there's a discount for you to get our pocket squares. That's why you also got to be a part of our Bring the Funk fan club. And so that's what we want you to do. And so it's pretty cool. So if you want to jazz your look up, you can do that. In addition, y'all see me with some of the feather pocket squares. My sister, who's a designer, she actually makes these. They're all custom made. So when you also go to the website, you can also order one of the customized feather pocket squares right there at RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So please do so. And of course, that goes to support the show. And again, if you're a Bring the Funk fan club member, you get a discount. This is why you should join the fan club.
Hey everybody, this is Sherry Shepherd. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, and while he's doing Unfiltered, I'm practicing the wobble. Yes, I am. Because Roland Martin's the one, he will do it backwards, he will do it on the side, he messes everybody up when he gets into the wobble, because he doesn't know how to do it, so he does it backwards. And it messes me up every single time. So I'm working on it. I got it. You got Roland Martin.
Hi, my name is LaToya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mac Wiles, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What up, Lana Well?
All right, here. All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Joining us right now on the phone line is Congressman Bobby Scott of Virginia. Congressman Scott, how you doing?
Hey, Roland, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You certainly feel good tonight. Joe Biden feels real good. Strong win tonight in your state of Virginia against Senator Bernie Sanders.
We did a really good job for him, and it was amazing because, you know, he hadn't spent any money. He just did well in South Carolina, showed he was clearly the strongest candidate, and all of the leadership in Virginia just came together and made endorsements, made phone calls, and it seemed to work. He got over 50% of the vote. The rest was split 3 or 4 ways. He was about 30 points above second place. So we really feel good about it.
He won by a wider percentage margin in Virginia than he did in South Carolina.
Yeah, he did. I think it was more. I think it was more than 30 points. He did got 64% of the vote in my district, so we're really pleased with that. But he did. His win in South Carolina was so dramatic. He won every county, about every demographic group, and showed that he's clearly the strongest person. The fact that he's got, I lost count after 50 members of Congress that have endorsed his campaign. It's probably around 60, maybe even 70 by now have endorsed his campaign, in stark contrast to the other candidates who only have a handful. And it's an indication that the people who are on the ballot want to be on the ballot with Joe Biden.
Well, let's talk about that, because obviously moving forward, he has to make the case. There are some who say this is all about trying to take out Senator Bernie Sanders. What, though, do you think he has to do moving forward? Congressman Jim Clyburn said that his campaign needs some work. It needs to be retooled. Have you had conversations with him about what needs to change moving forward now that he has got the, some say, what do they think, the Joe Mintum? Is that what they call it? Joe Mintum back?
Joe Mintum. Joe Mintum. Yeah, well, I think in Virginia, you know, I just think people wanted to vote for Joe Biden. I mean, he had the support. And he did so poorly in the first 2. People were a little concerned. They said, "Oh, well, you know, woe is me." And when he came through with such a spectacular fashion in South Carolina, he won the black vote and he won the white vote. I mean, he won everything, every county. And it clearly, when Tim Kaine endorsed him on Friday, I endorsed him, and Terry McCollum endorsed him on Saturday. 2 members of Congress from Northern Virginia, Jennifer Wexton and Don Beyer, endorsed him. Donald McEachin and Elaine Luria had already endorsed him. The leadership really came together. We actually had an interesting endorsement. We didn't have the money to promote it, but Senator John Warner endorsed him on Sunday.
Right. Wow.
Which means that you've got moderate Republican to liberal Democrat all supporting the same candidate, and that's the kind of coalition you need to put together to be elected president of the United States.
I want to
this evening, Joe was winning states from the East Coast all the way across the middle of America, through the South, through the Northwest. He was getting votes all over the country, and I think that's the kind of strength that we can show.
Well, let's talk.
All the Democratic candidates, by and large, are pointing the same way on most of the issues. Some want to go more aggressively than others.
Let's talk about
Texas.
Texas.
All going the same way, and the question is who is best positioned to win to actually implement the plans.
Let's talk about Texas. I'm looking right now on the Texas Secretary of State website here. You can go to my computer if you want. 32% of the people of the polls reporting right now Joseph Biden, 153,066 votes at 27%. Michael Bloomberg, 106,559 votes at 18%. Bernie Sanders, 156,635 votes. That means that Sanders is ahead by about 3,000 votes, 27.63% to 27%. Polling showed Sanders up anywhere from 9 to 12 points in Texas. I kept telling people it was not that large of a lead. And so all discussion has been about how Sanders could rack up huge delegate leads in Texas or California. If those numbers hold up, that's a break even for a Joe Biden in Texas. That would be a huge, huge coup. And his people are predicting an upset in Texas. That could be huge if that happens.
Well, I think when Joe Biden won so convincingly in South Carolina and proved that he could win every demographic group across the spectrum, every county in South Carolina, I think people concluded overnight that he is clearly the best candidate. We've got a good candidate. Let's go with him. Amy Klobuchar and Mayor Pete dropped out and endorsed him. Beto O'Rourke endorsed him. I think it's clear we have the best candidate, and we don't want to mess it up and nominate anything other than the strongest candidate. We've got good candidates. I mean, I'm not saying anything negative about anybody else, but I think you can just look at the people who will be on the ballot. We want to run with Joe Biden.
All right, then. Congressman Bobby Scott, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you. And he's going to be doing health care. He did health care. He could get things done. He led the charge on the assault weapons ban. Sunday night, he said he couldn't wait to sign the Safe Justice Act. That's the bill I've introduced on criminal justice reform. So we're looking forward to a great presidency. We just got to nominate him and elect him.
All right. We appreciate it, sir. Thanks a lot. All right,
Thank
folks.
you.
You know what? I never quite understand on election night where numbers come from. So I'm literally on the Texas Secretary of State website. The Texas Secretary of State, where they kind of like certify elections, they're reporting 32% of the Democratic county polling locations are in, 32%. Yet when I go over here to the New York Times website, they are showing that in Texas, 52% are reporting. I'm just trying to figure out.
Political has 45%.
I'm just trying to figure out how in the hell do they have 52% with the Secretary of State's
They may be
office?
gathering from different places. I know in Maryland, particularly,
Right, but
our county boards, sometimes county boards report before the state boards.
Secretary of State has the official number.
Right.
You have all these people who are projecting.
I'm just looking at this, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm looking at numbers, and so if you go to Henry, go to my computer, please. This is the New York Times. They're saying, updated 4 minutes ago, in Texas, 52% reporting. Bernie Sanders, 310,125 votes, 28.6%. Joe Biden, 290,584. Bloomberg is at 17.9%, just above the threshold to get delegates. That says a whole lot. Let me introduce some new members of our panel. Eugene was here earlier, Eugene Craig Organization. We have Dr. Julianne Malvo, economist, president emerita, Bennett College. Reese Colbert, Black Women's View. What's up?
Hey.
Pam Keith, attorney out of Florida. All right, folks. Interesting. So, Reese, I'm going to start with you. I tried to tell you, Reese.
What?
I tried. See, you were not trying to believe me when I was trying to tell you what was going to happen with Biden.
What?
You on the show, you kind of like, I don't know.
Wait, okay, but you have to refresh my memory. I'm going to concede I may have been
You
incorrect.
was sort of poop on it, and I was like, I'm just saying, y'all might want to wait. What do you make of what the hell's happened tonight?
Well, I think he had an unprecedented stampede towards him. I don't think I've been following politics very closely for 20 years. I've never seen the kind of stampede of major game-changing endorsements that he received across the country in such a short period of time. He had an overwhelming victory in South Carolina. None of the polls predicted that. And so I think it was like a $500 million jackpot landed in his lap with all these endorsements that essentially wiped out a lot of gains that Bloomberg made. Plus, the folks finally woke up. I think that some of these people should have dropped out after Nevada, but they wanted to, see what they can do to Super Tuesday.
Here's, I think, if I had to make a comparison, I'll make the comparison that what happened with Joe Biden in South Carolina compares to Obama winning Iowa.
Okay, I would agree with that, yeah.
And just for the people who are out there, just calm the hell down. Let me walk y'all through this. What I mean by that is, especially for African Americans, folks were like, all right, let's see what these white people gonna do. Then Obama wins Iowa, and that opens the floodgates. Everybody forgets 2-3 months out, Hillary Clinton was leading Obama by 25, 30 points. And I think what happened here, it just simply boiled down to, can Joe win?
Right. Absolutely.
And what I kept saying, Pam, is you don't know if Joe can win until people actually vote. It's amazing what happens when you just kind of wait to see what people are going to do.
Okay, I'm going to just disagree. There is something happening here that is not typical, normal in people voting. The truth of the matter is all of our candidates were solid, and had the juggernaut gotten behind Pete, we'd be talking about him. If the juggernaut got behind Liz, we'd be talking about her tonight. The juggernaut is controlled, I believe, I may be wrong, by Obama. He put his weight in there.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Where?
Not above.
Where?
Not above.
Where?
Underneath.
No, he didn't.
I highly doubt it. I mean, where do you get your facts from?
No,
Seriously.
Well, first of all, if Obama's making a call to Pete Buttigieg and saying, hey, you have leverage, you should pull out. You know, I'm saying that what happened
Buttigieg
is the
didn't have a way forward because he could not attract African American
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But what I am saying is that there was an operation of the machine that came to play. Jim Clyburn made a critical endorsement at a critical time that had a critical impact.
But they are friends and colleagues. You can. I mean, I'm
not saying it's
your
not
little
true.
conspiracy theory just holds no water for me.
It's not
I mean, love you dearly,
conspiracy.
sis.
It's the
but I
way
mean,
the party operates.
but you have that.
No.
It's not a conspiracy. The party does operate that way.
That might be your party.
Wait. Finish your point, then Julian. Go.
Right. If we were to look at what actually transpired, Joe had a really good showing in South Carolina, largely because Elizabeth Warren kneecapped Bloomberg 2 nights before.
But Bloomberg wasn't in the ballot in South Carolina.
But it made people who were holding off for Bloomberg to see what he could do go back to Joe and say, yeah, Bloomberg's not a better option. And that she exposed him. But what we were seeing when you start to see Congress...
Wait.
What you
Finish, then Julian.
When you start to see all of this sort of establishment, congressmen, so on and so forth, lining up, that's a galvanization. It's not a conspiracy. I'm not claiming it's a conspiracy.
Okay,
I'm
all right.
saying it's a galvanization.
I got it. Julian, go.
Whatever you're complaining is plain old wrong. What happened here? We saw Joe Biden. Roland made a point earlier.
Actually, I got to put you on hold right now. Let's go to South Carolina. On the phone is Congressman Jim Clyburn. Congressman, how you doing?
I'm okay, buddy. How are you?
I will say this, and I said it earlier. If Joe Biden wins the nomination and become president, you can sit back and say, make me Speaker of the damn House. Yeah. Because without your endorsement of Joe Biden in South Carolina, that blowout victory, look, tonight don't happen. Right. Yeah. Now, I'm gonna get you know I don't like giving Omegas no credit. None. But I will, for the first time, give an Omega some credit that his whole political life turned around because of you.
Right. And it's...
Well, I appreciate that. I really, really sincerely believe that this country is at an inflection point, and we have got to do something to get this country back on track. We had and we still have a lot of good candidates. Some have dropped out, some are still in. They're good. But I just think that the best emissary for the Democratic Party, the best administrator for this country of all the crop is Joe Biden. I think he can win in November. Now, I know the surveys show that other people can win as well. But of all the surveys, the one that polls the best is Joe Biden. So why go with what's good if you got the best on the line? You know, you used to try to play golf. If you want to win, if you got all these indicators out there saying that Joe Biden is the best for the Democrats, I think that's what we ought to do.
But so, Congressman, what caused you to endorse? What caused you to endorse? Because initially, I mean, did you always plan to endorse, or were you going to allow it to happen? What caused you to say, I need to endorse Joe Biden? I
went to the homegoing service of my full-time accountant who's been sick for several years. And when he passed away, his brother-in-law sent me a text and told me that he had passed and told me where the funeral was and what time. I went home to South Carolina and went to the funeral. I walked in the church and walked down the coffin, said a prayer, and I turned around. There was an elderly lady sitting on the front pew of the church, way off to the right. It's a rural church in Hopkins, South Carolina. And she beckoned to me with her finger to come over. I went over to her, and she said, lean down. I need to ask you something. I leaned down, and she said, I need to know who you are voting for in this election. I want to hear it from you. She said, if you don't want anybody else to hear it, just whisper it in my ear. And I whispered in her ear who I thought, who I was going to vote for and thought she should. And she looked up to me and said, this community needs to hear from you. And that's when I decided to make the speech I made. I never wrote a word. I walked up to the mic. I looked at two of my three daughters sitting over to my right, and there was a seat open next to them. And I just envisioned my late wife sitting in that seat as she would have been at any other political event. And that's when I made that speech, and that's what made me endorse the way I did.
You talk a lot about Miss Emily, who passed away, who was your most important political advisor.
Right.
We look at the exit poll data. 47% of the people said your endorsement was important. 24% said it was very important. And when you look at what happened after that, Tom Steyer drops out that night. Pete Buttigieg drops out on Sunday. Amy Klobuchar, she drops out on Monday. Buttigieg and Klobuchar both go to Dallas to endorse Joe Biden. Then so many people over the past 4 days then began to endorse Joe Biden as well. Do you believe that all of these people were just sort of sitting back and thinking, you know what, Joe's going to lose. Let's see if he can actually do it. And then when he proved he can actually win, the floodgates opened.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That lady said to me, in so many words, she was undecided as to what to do. And when I told her what I felt, and after that day, after the voting on Saturday, I went up to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and all I heard from people were waiting to see if he had a chance. They had hearts with him all the time. But you know black voters like I know black voters. Whatever may be their heart, they will use their head. And their heads were telling them that they needed to wait to see if Joe could prove he had a legitimate candidacy. And that's when he won so big in South Carolina. And I told people, the press call asked me, why are you doing this? I am trying to create a surge. I don't want to just win. I want there to be a surge because I wanted to reach up to North Carolina and Virginia. And I had calls from Virginia telling me they heard the speech and they were responding. And so I owe it once again to that elderly black woman who said to me, son, this community needs to hear from you. And I decided I need to get off my duff and let people know what I saw traveling around this country. And I believe very strongly. Once again, everybody says, well, Joe Biden knows you. No, he doesn't know me. My staff is out now trying to find that lady. And I'm going and thank her for getting me off my duff. So he doesn't know a thing to me. He owes it to that woman I don't know her name. I don't know who she is. But the deacon, you might like her. You might be divine intervention.
Well,
let me tell you.
Yeah.
The chair of the deacon board, Mr. Middleton, is a good buddy of mine. His sister, Eugenia Middleton, was Emily Clyburn's roommate at South Carolina State.
Wow. Well,
I'm telling you.
Well, I tell you what, if Joe Biden wins the nomination, he's going to say God sent an angel to whisper in your ear to make that happen. Last question for you. You made a comment that Biden needs to make some changes to his campaign. He now has momentum. Huge wins tonight. I mean, what has to move forward? I personally think Michael Bloomberg getting in the race and him losing badly in Iowa, New Hampshire, to be real honest, Congressman, woke Joe Biden the hell up. I think he was sleepwalking. I think he was taking this. I think he was taking this thing way too casual. I think you see the reports. He was not calling around, touching base with people, not trying to get those endorsements. And I think, look, it woke him up. Now he's going to have to shift into another gear because now the fight is on. And so I'm sure you have made it perfectly clear to him and his campaign, they're going to have to toughen the hell up and get better moving forward.
That's exactly what I told him. I told him, if you heard his speech tonight from California, I think it was in Los Angeles.
Yeah, he was in L.A.
Spoke to his supporters out there. That was more passion that I've heard from him. I told him, I said, look, you are right on the issue. Everybody wants your Obamacare to perfect it. We want to work on that. Everybody likes your affordable housing program. All that's fine. But people got to feel you. They hear you, but they aren't feeling you. I said, your speeches have got to create emotions in people. You got to capture people's hearts. People use their heads, but they feel with their hearts. And I told him that. And I heard him tonight. He even said, I also told him, in a town hall meeting, any person asked of you, I want you to think in threes. This is what my program on healthcare will do for you. This is what my healthcare program will do for your family. And this is my healthcare program will do for your community. And I listened to him tonight. He laid it out that way. So at least he's listening. Well, you and I have had some experiences that he has not had.
Yep.
I shared those experiences with him. Hey, man, he's listening.
Well, you
did it.
Well, you gave him what is called in the preaching circle the A. Lewis Patterson 3-point principle. People only remember 3 points when you give a sermon, and so that was certainly some preacher advice you gave him, Congressman Jim Clyburn. We appreciate you jumping on the line, being on the show with us. We've been live for the last 4 hours, giving the black perspective, because we know you're not going to get the black perspective on those other networks every now and then, but we wanted to be all black all night, and so we appreciate you joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. But just remember, I don't care what you do, you're going to end up in Omega chapter.
See, there you go. There you go. There you go. But I'm in Alpha right now. All right, Clyburn, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna go Eugene here. I'm going to Eugene here. Now, hold on. I'm going to go to Eugene. I'll come back to you. Hold on. What he said is very interesting. How many times have you heard all these years? Endorsements don't mean a damn thing.
Oh, no, they matter. They matter a whole lot, especially endorsements that are specific to specific communities. Every community has leaders within that community, whether it be racial community, whether a work type of community. There are leaders within the community that members of the community listen to. And when it comes to the black community, as it stands right now, Jim Clyburn is the highest elected black official in the United States of America as the third-ranking member of the House of Representatives. We have 2 black senators after that, and then after that we have no governors. We have 2 or 3 lieutenant governors, a couple of attorney generals. So when Jim Clyburn speaks, the country listens. Black America listens, and South Carolina, listened, and they delivered. I think, Joe Biden, the polls never showed him down in South Carolina, but that Jim Clyburn endorsement, Joe Biden might have been the cake, but Clyburn was the icing, the cherry on top, the whipped cream, everything else that came with it.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the results and dividends now. I mean, because of, Clyburn's endorsement, you're seeing, Biden probably overtaking Bernie a little bit now in the Texas vote.
Julian, again, we talk about endorsements. Let's take the Clyburn endorsements. Obviously major. But as Reese said, then all of a sudden the floodgates open. I really believe, this is where I disagree with Pam, I really believe there were people who were sitting here going, I was with him for a long time. Then they saw cracks. And then it was, Doc, you're going to have to show me you in this thing. And I think that's why Bloomberg gets in. And then Bloomberg is dropping the ads, he's dropping the money, and he is locking up endorsements. He is picking up here and here and here, but he wasn't on the ballot in the first 4 states. And Joe Biden is sitting there saying, I told y'all, my firewall is South Carolina. And everybody's sitting there, yeah, he's like, no, my firewall is South Carolina. Give credit to the Biden campaign. They kept saying, y'all see what y'all want to? It's going to be South Carolina. That endorsement drops, and that door just, it completely changed its entire race.
Definite game changer. It's interesting that so many people put so much emphasis on New Hampshire and Iowa. When you look at the percentage of the delegates they get, it's minimal. So I really think Biden was right to hold it on until South Carolina, especially since he'd done his homework. But, when we look at, what's his name, Bloomberg, the billionaire, if he is true to form in terms of saying he wants to get rid of 45, then he'll use some of those billions, and we don't need billions. 500 million will do. That's what Hillary had. But anyway, I just think that it was a smashing victory for Biden, and he seemed to come into his own. He did not. His debate performances were pathetic. The best, and that's kind. But it seems that once he got that wind, this evening when he was talking, different person.
Right.
And so he needed the community, but he really should have stepped up earlier, even if he had low votes, to go into those debates so ill prepared. Really is troubling.
I think...
Go ahead.
Me and Rob were talking earlier, and I think Bloomberg might have played a really interesting special role here in this primary. With him going up on air, he made it extremely expensive for Bernie to spend money anywhere. With him going up on digital, where, you could probably get a dramatic higher burn for your dollar, he made it almost impossible for Bernie to spend money anywhere. So it made Bernie's fundraising prowess moot, almost overnight. And where, Bernie may spend, $700,000 somewhere, and it feels like a big drop, Bloomberg comes in and spends $100 million, and it's nothing to him. He'll make that back tomorrow. But what it does, it becomes an opportunity to block out the sun, while Biden pretty much has an opportunity to rise via earned media and a big bump out of South Carolina. And speaking of Biden, I know you're following Texas pretty heavily. He just took the lead, actually.
And in fact, this is Henry. Go to my computer. This is actually somebody shot a video. Polls in. You want to talk about the turnout in Texas?
Yeah.
One woman was in line for 3 hours and 17 minutes.
Wow.
There are people in Texas who are in line. Polls closed in Texas. Actually, more than 3 hours ago. People are still in line. Reese, the thing is, now here's the other piece. Democrats are in control of Harris County. This is where Democrats had better. Somebody had this tweet, and I just saw it. They said, they said long lines in Texas and California. Democrats better figure this thing out before November, or you're going to be turning away a lot of your own people from going to the polls.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, primaries have between 15 and 20%. 20% turnout is a lot of turnout. So if we're seeing those sorts of problems with 20% turnout, the extensive amount of early voting that's already happened, over 1 million votes were already cast in Texas. that is incredibly troubling. And that's a suppressive aspect. And it's a self-inflicted wound with the Democrats being in charge there.
Also a huge night. Henry, go to my iPad. We showed y'all the Joe Biden speech from earlier. I'm trying to play this video, y'all. So remember when the protesters were on stage as Joe Biden was speaking? I don't know why it's not letting me. Okay, let me see if I can get it. So Simone Sanders, who is one of the advisors. Okay, I can't get the video to play. I'm gonna try to go. So y'all, she straight as went. So remember when? Who was on? Was it Kamala Harris?
Kamala Harris had that
when
same
Kareem Jean-Pierre straight up and played linebacker or blocker. That woman. Well, one of these protesters jumped on stage, and Henry, go to my computer. Simone jumped on stage, y'all, and went after and dragged homegirl. Oh, watch it again. Watch this. Boom.
Literally dragging. Literally dragging.
So where was the Secret Service?
All right, hold on. We're going to play that again. I mean, I got to give Simone. I mean, she...
Literally physically.
Now, hold on. Now, I want to watch out. Watch the bottom right-hand corner. You're going to see a brother. He is, watch this here. He's trying to come up. Simone's like, damn that. Went up the steps, snatched homegirl, and dragged her ass off the stage. If y'all are running for president, y'all better have some black staffers around you who gonna straight jack some people.
Don't mess with black women.
I just had to give Simone a shout out for tackling homegirl. Let me go back to again.
Yeah, the question about Secret Service though. So it's been a discussion on Twitter. So apparently, what happens is that vice presidents, after they leave office, they lose their detail after 6 months. Oh, okay. But when folk are running for president, once you're deemed a major candidate, you're supposed to get it, but technically have to request it. The Bidens technically haven't requested it.
They haven't qualified yet.
Well, they qualify. No, you qualify. You qualify once you meet certain thresholds. But all the candidates met the particular thresholds. But you also have to request it, and they haven't requested it yet. Like I can tell you, this time in 2016, in particular, Carson literally inconvenienced everybody attending CPAC that Friday night when he suspended his campaign because he still had Secret Service protection detail. And we all had to go through magnetometers.
Let me go here, Pam. Right now, according to NBC, they reported this 6 minutes ago. Henry, you can go to my computer. Bloomberg to huddle with advisors. Let me cancel this. In New York, reassess staying in race.
Right.
I told y'all, y'all need to go ahead and watch this show. I told y'all March 4th was going to be the critical. I said if Michael Bloomberg does not win 4 to 5 states on Super Tuesday, he's gone. Right. Y'all, ball don't lie. Michael Bloomberg only won American Samoa tonight, 6 delegates. That's it. He did not win any of the other states.
Right.
But I'm telling you, hold on, I'm going to Pam. I'm telling you right now, Bloomberg is gone.
And I actually agree with you. 10 days ago, I was getting calls from a lot of my network in Florida. And you're absolutely right, Eugene. We have influencers in our community, the person that everybody in the community calls and say, who should I be voting for? And those people were reporting to me the interest in Bloomberg and how people were kind of thinking this is a great opportunity. A lot of the pastors were starting to talk about Michael Bloomberg as, a person that they could get behind. But when Elizabeth Warren kneecapped him in that debate, it's not just that she pointed out some vulnerabilities. It's that he was totally unable to respond.
Unprepared.
And ended up looking like a non-entity on the stage. That killed the narrative that he was the guy who was going to take on Donald Trump. Because if you just get your ass beat by a woman on stage, then you're not going to beat Donald Trump. Nobody's going to believe that.
But
that changed the narrative for Bloomberg to the point where that South Carolina endorsement really had an even greater impact because the people who were holding their dollars or holding their votes all of a sudden said, okay, now we have a direction in which to go. And that's the point I'm trying to make. It was a galvanization, but that galvanization is not directionless, right? It's not a conspiracy. I'm not suggesting a conspiracy.
Well, it sounded like that's
hold
what you were
on. Wait. Hold on, but let me show numbers. Go to my computer. Alabama, Biden, Sanders, Bloomberg. Bloomberg, 11.8%. Arkansas, Biden, Sanders, Bloomberg. Bloomberg, 16.9%. California right now is showing Sanders at 28%, Bloomberg at 18.9%, Biden at 16.8%. Colorado, Sanders, Biden, Bloomberg. Maine, Biden, Sanders, Warren, Bloomberg, 11.8%. Massachusetts, Biden, Sanders, Warren, Bloomberg, 11.6%. Minnesota, Biden, Sanders, Warren, Bloomberg, 8.3%. North Carolina, Biden, Sanders, Bloomberg, 13%. Oklahoma, Biden, Sanders, Bloomberg, 14.3%. Tennessee, Biden, Sanders, Bloomberg, 16%. Texas, Biden, Sanders, Bloomberg, 17%. Utah, Sanders, Bloomberg, 17.3%. Virginia, Biden, Sanders, Warren, Bloomberg, 9.7%. Vermont, Sanders, Biden, Warren, Bloomberg, 9.3%. American Samoa, Bloomberg, 49.9%. Here's the point here. If you look at all of these states, Arkansas, he gets 16.9%, so he'll qualify for some delegates. California, he'll qualify for delegates. Colorado, he'll qualify for delegates. No delegates in Maine. No delegates in Massachusetts. No delegates in Minnesota. No delegates in North Carolina, where he was actually, polling showed him tying Joe Biden among black people. Oklahoma, 14.3%, no delegates. Tennessee, 16%, qualify for delegates. Texas, qualify for delegates. Utah, qualify for delegates. Virginia, no delegates. Vermont, no delegates. Bottom line is this here. For $500+ million he spent, Mike Bloomberg got his ass whooped tonight. And there is no plausible path when you look at these numbers, because what it's going to show, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, he might do very well in Florida. Michael Bloomberg thought in November that Joe Biden looked weak. I see an opportunity. What happened was, and all of y'all people, all these media who kept writing and saying that stop and frisk didn't matter, that said the Central Park 5 case didn't matter. Y'all do not understand. Black people were paying attention, and it did not matter if Steve Benjamin, the Columbia, South Carolina mayor, or Sylvester Turner, the mayor of Houston, or even Muriel Bowser, mayor of D.C., all these black people who ran to Mike Bloomberg, the proof is in the pudding. Reese, there is no way in hell that this man stays in, and if he does, it's purely ego. Anything else, because numbers don't lie. Reese,
Roland, he paid,
1 second, Reese.
Right, no, I agree with you, but also because I've looked at these numbers very extensively, let's also be clear that it seems to me that Bloomberg is actually performing mostly along where his polling was. Biden is the one who had a massive surge, because just if you look at the aggregate polling data as of yesterday, Bloomberg and Biden were not viable, not meeting this 15% threshold in the same 5 or 6 states. And then in those states, even Bloomberg was ahead of that. So Biden did not just, he catapulted from not even being viable in 6 states as of the polling averages of yesterday to now winning several of those states.
Because people, again,
so it's not,
people saw what was going on, and they heard, and see, this is where, again, there are people who were saying, Julian, oh, these debates don't matter. There were 20 million people who watched the Nevada debate. There were 15+ million who watched the CBS debate. Then you had the millions who watched online. People were watching. And again, all of these stories against Bloomberg, all of the messaging, and all of that, people say, oh, yeah, but all the ads. But people were listening and paying attention. The results are clear.
You know, Roland, first of all, Michael Bloomberg paid $100 million per delegate. If you look at, I mean, he doesn't have more than 5. So $100 million per delegate. This is total hubris. I can go in and buy myself an election, buy myself a nomination. What's so fascinating as you read out the numbers with the various states is less Bloomberg. I mean, he's a footnote. He'll be a footnote in this election. But I'm concerned about the Sanders-Biden play. I have elderly friends who have said they will not, and they woke. They're have been politically active. They will not vote for a socialist. People hear socialist, they think communist. And Bernie has been proudly saying, I'm a democratic socialist. So he's cut out a slice of people who would vote for him. And people do forget that black people are not the most progressive people in the world. We're by and large moderate to conservative. So it's fascinating. I'm very curious to see what happens, but we live in exciting times, and sort of fasten your seatbelt on.
Eugene, go ahead.
So this is the thing. I actually have an interesting take here. I actually think the one thing Michael Bloomberg might have bought himself was the Joe Biden presidency, all right? So let's walk through this. Let's walk through this, all right? Bloomberg gets in, the first promise he makes is this: win, lose, or draw, I'm paying my people through November. You know, you're going to be paid through November. Whatever happens, I'm turning over everything I built over to whoever the nominee is. But that tells me this: okay, one, the DNC is weak. I'm going to be the new DNC. I'm not going to be power broker. I'm going to be the power.
Yeah.
What then happens is, all right, all the candidates take their eye off the ball, i.e. Bernie or Biden, and say, hey, we want to attack that guy. Break your rules and let him on the debate stage. Bloomberg says, sure, I can play your debate game and waste my time with you. I'm not going to be prepared. What happens? Everybody comes out swinging at Bloomberg, ignores Bernie. Bloomberg then, so what does that do? That takes Elizabeth Warren's eye off the ball. She's so focused on Bloomberg, she's not focused on actually going after where her voters are.
Right.
The next point here comes in. Bloomberg then says, all right, the real threat here to Biden is Bernie. So what am I going to do? I'm going to target all of my firepower and turn it towards Bernie. I'm going to ignore Buttigieg's inexperience. I'm going to ignore Klobuchar's inability to reach voters that aren't, middle-aged white folk in the Midwest. I'm not going to deal with Biden. I'm not going to deal with Warren. I'm going to turn all my firepower to Bernie. What then happens is, okay, we get the actual vote. Biden has a surge in South Carolina. We get the vote today, and Warren's distracted. Bernie's wounded. Klobuchar and Amy are gone by the time Super Tuesday rolls around. It only cost them $500 million, and it might have saved them probably $10 to $20 billion. Now they have to deal with a wealth tax or Bernie coming in and trying to ramp through some other stuff.
Right.
But Pam, here's the deal, though, and everything Eugene said, I totally understand. The reality is, we have this many candidates. You got to hit somebody.
Right.
And guess what? If you're Warren, you were standing right next to Bloomberg in the debate.
Yeah.
He jumps in. I'm sorry, that's a big-ass pinata, okay? And so she did exactly what she was supposed to do. But the other thing is this here. If you look at the last two debates, Sanders pretty much got through them unscathed because folks were going after Bloomberg.
Right.
But still what happened was voters out there are making decisions. Henry, go to my computer right now. I'll show you. Texas, 61% reporting. Joe Biden is taking the lead.
Yep.
390,566 votes to Bernie Sanders, 366,571. Still very close, and Bloomberg is at 16.9% with 218,000 votes.
It's a wider margin.
But again, what it is showing is that when you have this number of people in the race, the votes is going to be fractured. And guess what? The person who gets hot at the right time, okay, can actually do some damage. And bottom line is, exit polling data show more than 40% of the people said they decided in the last 24 to 48 hours.
Absolutely. Your point is extremely valid, that there was this sort of, we don't know where is the incoming fire coming from and to whom that was going on there. And I'm not sure that I would say that Elizabeth took her eye off the ball. I think she very strongly wanted to expose that Bloomberg was not really sharing the values of the Democratic Party.
But the issue is that what value did that add to her? Yes, it helps drive her point, but the thing is this: when your next two contests are Nevada and South Carolina, and you're literally fighting to survive, you need to fight for those voters. And Bloomberg isn't on the ballot at the point, but who's on the ballot and occupying your lane is Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, but Bloomberg had buried us in those darn ads. I mean, I turn on my computer, a Bloomberg ad comes up.
And it actually pisses people off.
Yeah,
it gets to the point where you're like, damn, man, another ad?
Right.
Yeah, in the source of about 10 or 15 minutes, you see the ads
6 times.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
But it comes down to voters.
But I
you're going after voters.
I don't think that Senator Warren took her eye off the ball.
No.
Because she and Bernie have a relationship. Even though it's a fractured relationship, it's a relationship. She didn't want to go after Bernie. She
don't want to be president.
Well,
then that's running for second place.
She and Bernie.
You play to win.
She and Bernie have the same issues. You know, I don't think she should have attacked Bernie. I think the attack on Bernie should have come from somebody like Buttigieg or
No, it comes
Klobuchar.
from the person that's occupying your lane. If you're playing spades and your partner is cutting, your partner's not cutting, you jump in there and you cut.
And in the case of Buttigieg, first of all, no. In the case of Buttigieg, what happened? Buttigieg goes after Klobuchar because they're in the same lane. Again, this is the piece.
And it caused
there were
both to lose.
there were 6 to 7 people on stage.
Right.
Buttigieg and Klobuchar in the same lane, but it didn't matter because they were not in a lane with black people.
That's it.
Then you had Tom Steyer, who was courting black people, but in the end, when Jim Clyburn weighed in, black people said, Tom, we love you, but player, we out. And so all of a sudden, all that money he spent didn't matter. Then you got Elizabeth Warren. Yes, she didn't necessarily want to go after Bernie because her and Bernie supporters are the same. But the bottom line is she was the second choice of Bernie supporters, but he's the first choice. And so bottom line, so she wasn't going to necessarily grab a lot of the moderates' votes. So guess what? Now you're out, which is why you're left with 2 people who are going to be standing. Let me ask all of you right now, do a reset. This panel is going to be in for the next 10 minutes before I bring in 1 or 2 more people. Now, I'll start with you, Reese. What happens next? First, you're Sanders. What do you do?
Well, I think Sanders is going to stay the course of what he's been doing. I think he has a solid base. And I'm not a Sanders fan, to be clear, but I do think that he has a solid message that's very clear, it's very coherent, and he has a loyal base. And he's well positioned in the head-to-head matchups, you know, when it gets down to 2 people against Biden. Biden, on the other hand, has a lot of fine-tuning that he needs to do. His organization needs to be brought up considerably. He was running a very lean organization because he didn't have the fundraising. So he's going to have to scale up incredibly quickly. I think his message also needs fine-tuning. I don't think nonverbal Obama is going to be adequate in a 2-person race against Bernie Sanders. And so I think that between the 2, obviously Biden is better positioned in the sense of he does have he has a much broader lane of people that are supporting him. But in terms of the mechanics and the organization and needing to fine tune the message so that you can position yourself for the general election, he has more work to do.
Right. I got to agree completely. I think that some of the anachronisms of the Biden that we saw early in this process, the no malarkey tour, I mean, he definitely needs to step up his game and his message for this particular time. But I also think that a lot of that is happening around him. Just like the point I was trying to make earlier, which is that Biden didn't do anything differently to make South Carolina happen or Virginia or anything else. Things happened around him. And one of the narratives that grew out of this is that Joe Biden is decency and Donald Trump is not. And that is something that I think he could actually build on, that Joe Biden is the good guy, the guy that's steady and empathetic, and you can trust him, you know him, he's reliable, and he cares about the people. And I think that narrative is one from which he can actually grow a steady, clear message, especially if he's going head-to-head against Donald Trump. It's a different message if he's going head-to-head against Bernie Sanders.
Exactly.
And that's a tougher dynamic, but I think Joe has a lot more surrogates to play with now than Bernie does. He has a lot more validators out there than Bernie does. I personally think that my greatest concern is that it gets so toxic between them that whichever side loses, doesn't come back to the table for the general.
That's the biggest problem, is that the Bernie, what do they call them, Bernie bros? They're so passionate about Bernie. I was with some young people. It was social, but they pulled me aside. They want to talk politics. And this little sister said to me, if Bernie does not get the nomination, I'm not voting. And that's what they said last time with Hillary, and we see what it cost us. And I think they're going that way again. Those Bernie bros, you talk about toxic. I mean, they jump on people, they harass them online, they do all that. So I'm concerned that Bernie can't keep his troops in line, and he really has to do that. But the other issue is Tom Perez, head of the DNC, frankly, good guy, but I don't know that he's doing a great job. I mean, because this is where the party should step in and sort of cool some jets. And, again, great guy.
How? First of all, how can the party step in to cool some jets when one of the people has rejected the party? How? Well, I mean, first of all, you can't. Okay, that only works if Pam and Reese and me, if we all in the party and we respect the party and we appreciate the party and we all say, okay, we all good Democrats.
Right.
That'll fly. But if me and Reese are like that and Pam like, look, I ain't one of y'all.
She's a Democratic socialist.
And you can't leave out the fact that Perez is chairman because Obama interceded to keep Keith Ellison from becoming DNC chair. Perez was not trying to... Tom Perez, let me be real clear, okay? Tom Perez didn't want this job.
No.
Tom Perez was not trying to become the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. That happened because Obama was like, look, okay, I need your ass to do this here because he is not going to be the DNC chair. That's what's going on here. So you can't rein in somebody who is unreignable.
Well, except for the party provides these folks, we're not at that stage yet, but provides folks with support, dollars, et cetera.
Bernie Sanders like, I don't need your support.
Yeah,
I don't give a damn about y'all. His deal is, I got my own mailing list. I'm raising my money. The reality is, part of Bernie Sanders' entire campaign is I'm campaigning against them.
Exactly.
Bernie ain't gonna listen to them because he's running against them. And running against them is why a lot of his supporters are supporting him. So that is the conundrum. The real deal is this here. You have somebody, and again, I ain't endorse nobody, and so I interview all of them. I'm calling it like it is, y'all. You got one guy who said, who ran as a Democrat and said, all right, I'll go ahead and stay a Democrat. But the moment he lost, I'm an independent.
Yeah.
Then, okay, I'm gonna run back as a Democrat. It's real simple. You either gonna be in this or you not. And Sanders is doing this here. And the reason you see the coalescing around Biden, which is listen to the language. As a reason Biden says, I am a Democrat. I have always been a Democrat. I will continue to be a Democrat. He's appealing to the people who are saying, and y'all need to listen, who are saying, you know what? Bernie, you like Trump. You're an opportunist. I'm telling you what's going on here. And that's the dynamic that I think Sanders has to understand, because the only way Sanders, if it comes down to him and Biden, is going to win a higher threshold, he has to win people who he hasn't been courting. And Eugene,
he hasn't been courting.
He has not been courting black women.
No. He hasn't been courting black folks at all.
But, no. He's been courting, no. He's been courting African Americans. But what I'm saying is, he has not been specifically courting black women. And see, what's about to happen is, you about to see some real, throwing down now, because Bloomberg out, Warren out. Now the groups, Higher Heights, the group of black women who endorse Warren, now all of a sudden it's going to be like, what we do. Patrice Cullors, I think she endorsed with Sanders or Warren. What's about to happen is, it's about to go down there. But you can't run against everybody in the party when you got 30%, because you got to get 40, 45, 48. You got to.
Right.
Eugene, go ahead.
So two things. I've held that Sanders has always had about a 30-35% ceiling, and that's what we're seeing across the board.
Right.
Even tonight, no more than 30-35% anywhere. But what's coming up is this. We got the next 2 weeks are pretty much 2 mini Super Tuesdays. I mean, you got Idaho, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, and Washington next week. I mean, Sanders and Biden probably split those states 3-3, win-win, right? But then the week after that, it's probably a complete wash for Sanders with Arizona, Florida, Illinois, and Ohio. He might take Ohio, but he's going to lose Illinois, Florida, and Arizona.
Here's the deal. First of all,
he can try to walk into Florida and talk that Castro, Maduro.
I am making...
Hulaney.
Here's the piece. I am making absolutely no predictions on any of these states, because if one thing that we have learned from tonight, it is totally unpredictable. You have no idea who's going to be endorsing anybody. You have no idea what's going to happen. But what I do know is this here. When you talk about this enthusiasm, and this is where Donald Trump can run his mouth and tweeting all day, numbers don't lie. 2016, the turnout in Virginia was 782,000. Tonight, it was 1.3 million. You saw South Carolina exceeded when Obama ran in 2008. Texas numbers. All of these people, and this is where all these national people get on. National media has created this narrative that Trump is invincible. I'm telling you, the man is not invincible. Now, what you got to watch out for is the cheating.
Yes.
As Greg said earlier, he will cheat his ass off if he needs to.
Well, cheating and voter suppression.
That's what I'm saying. But I will say this here. I do believe that Democrats this time are much better prepared to deal with voter suppression
than they were last time.
Because they were playing games last time. And Robbie Mook.
Suppressed their own vote.
John Podesta. Marlon Marshall. And all of y'all who were the top of Hillary's campaign. All of y'all were arrogant asses. And you didn't listen to the ground. And like I said in 2016, you had your head stuck in your PDAs and your damn algorithms. How you got your ass whooped. And not going to make the mistake, and as Lauren said, a Biden or a Sanders will not ignore Michigan.
Exactly.
Or Wisconsin.
Right.
Or Pennsylvania. Yeah. It's not going to happen. I got to go to a break. We'll come back, more Roland Martin Unfiltered, and we'll give you some results of what's happening in California. Back in a moment with our Super Tuesday coverage. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
What's up? This is Aldous Hodge, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, everybody, it's your girl, Sherry Shepard, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hey, Roland.
There's Tim Story, director of Shaft. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What up, y'all? This is Method Man, Mighty Wu-Tang Clan. You watching Uncle Roland Martin, and the show is Unfiltered. Make sure y'all tune in. Laura Ingraham, you suck.
This is Diala Riddle, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay woke.
This is Director X, the director of Superfly on the red carpet, or the black carpet. And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is Jay Ellis, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm Lex Scott Davis, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, welcome back to our Super Tuesday coverage right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Here we go to a wide shot. Those of you who are watching, yes, the show looks a little bit different. Thanks for Ask Me. Of course, they are one of our partners here, and all of the people who are part of our Bring the Funk fan club. We were able to build our new set. Here, we're not completely done, but we, for the most part, and so we did this here, and it was first of all, let me look at it. So, first, let me be real clear so y'all understand. It was a black-owned company that built this set. Y'all know how we do, and so let me get the name. Here, just go ahead and tell me in my ear. I'm looking for your text message. Yeah, the Resource Pool LLC. Black-owned company built our set here, and we really appreciate it. So let me explain to y'all what you see below. Y'all can go ahead and get a shot of that. So when we did this set with a TV monitor, come back to the wide, with a TV monitor down front. And so they had this thing where we can light it. You see on the ends there, you see the blue, or we can do blue or red. I was like, you know what, that's a little boring. And so when we had Washington Watch, that was my TV One show. There was this art piece that you rarely ever. It was weird. We rarely ever showed it on the show. It was this U.S. flag. It was this U.S. flag that actually had all of these different African Americans who were in this flag, and it was a pretty cool flag. Like I say, you rarely ever saw it. We never used it. Hell, I forgot the damn thing was even there. And yet when the show, right before, I guess about 2 years before we would say, hey, when the show ends, Jonathan Rogers said he was going to keep this flag, but then when Jonathan retired, the show was still going. So I was like, you ain't getting that flag, and so they brought it to my house. Henry, you can look at that. So this is the flag here. Do you see it? Okay. Let me see if I can try to reset the thing here. Okay. How about now? Do you see it? Do you see my iPad? Okay. I'm showing it's up. So, okay. All right. So what y'all may not realize is that here. They put all these African Americans in the stars. So you can see Dorothy Dandridge, you can see right there Huey Newton, you can see Dorothy Height, Max Robinson. You're right. And so then in the stripes, you see they took these articles and these newspaper clippings, and you see Muhammad Ali, you see so all these African Americans, Marvin Gaye, in this piece. It's a huge piece. And I say out of all the art I have, I would sell every piece of art I have, but I would never sell that. Because it's just an amazing piece. And so I was sitting and I was like, you know, I said, I need something like that that's different. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, straight up 1 o'clock in the morning last week, and I'm driving and I said, I wonder if Leroy Campbell, the artist, could do something. And so what I did, I'm literally driving. It's 2 weeks ago. I'm going to NBA All-Star game. It was 15 degrees in Chicago, so I had to go to Walmart and get me some damn thermals before I left. And I called Leroy, and I said, Leroy, I got an idea. And he's like, what do you think? And I said, I'm thinking these 2 panels down below, I want something, some kind of artistic rendition. So go tight end. So you'll see this is one of the art pieces that Leroy did. And it's actually it's multiple generations of African Americans voting. And so you see in here, you see Shirley Chisholm. So he takes these newspaper articles and infuses that into the painting. And you see young African American, you see old African American, and you see all those clippings in the back. And you see if you go down, it'll say "Remember to vote." And then if you go down and then you pan left, you see the little child as well. And I said, I said, Leroy, whatever you're thinking, I said, this is what I want. So he actually, they printed 2 canvases, they sent it to us, but Leroy's actually reproducing these actually on canvas. And so he's in London right now, and then he'll send those, we'll mount those. So there'll be actual, just like that piece over there, that Obama piece, that Ted, y'all get a shot of that? Ted Ellis, the artist out of Houston, I spoke in Houston to Jackie's Alumni Association. They gave me that as a gift. And I got a bunch of Ted Ellis's pieces. So it's going to be on actual canvas. He's already done. He's in London. He says he's going to ship it when he gets back in a week.
Is this original to you? Is this an original
No, this
painting?
is one of the pieces that he had previously done.
Okay.
And so when I said to him, I said, hey, I want something that that really speaks to what we do. And so we sent that. So that's why we have those 2 art pieces there. So black set built by a black set designer, and of course Leroy Campbell. Follow him, y'all, on Instagram and Twitter. Does some amazing work. So so all y'all support our Bring the Fuck fan club. Your dollars made all this possible. That's actually where the money came from. And so that's why we appreciate y'all supporting what we do, allowing us to remain independent, remain black, and unfiltered. All right, folks, let's do a reset here. It has been an absolutely unbelievable, crazy night. A week ago, everyone said the campaign of Joe Biden will be over by Super Tuesday. That Bernie Sanders will be running away with this election, that no one could stop him. He was an unstoppable force. Then all of a sudden, the folks in South Carolina vote. Joe Biden has a huge victory, and that just opened the floodgates to tonight. And when we talk about tonight, you talk about huge wins all across the country. Let me do a refresh right here. These are live results here. 88% of the ballots in. Actually, Henry, I got you. Let me switch this here to go so you can pull that up. 88% of the ballots are in Alabama, as you see. Joe Biden, 63% to Bernie Sanders. You should see it now. Bernie Sanders, 16%. Then let me zoom it in here. Then what you have here is Arkansas. Joe Biden, 31 delegates, 40.1%, Sanders 22.4%, Bloomberg 16.9%, Warren at 9.9%. California, so far, 30% of the reporting in. Sanders is at 28.4%, but this is the critical deal. Both Bloomberg and Biden are over 15%, which means that the delegate haul that Sanders was expected to get, he is not going to get. And so it'll be 415 delegates. He will win a majority of those delegates, but it's not going to be as big as they said. Colorado, 67 delegates. Sanders win 35.9% to Biden's 22.7%. Maine, still extremely tight, 24 delegates, but Biden is leading 33.8% to Sanders 32.2%. Massachusetts, where Senator Elizabeth Warren is a sitting United States Senator, she comes in third place at 21.5%. Bloomberg is in fourth. Biden beats Sanders by 6 points. Polling showed Sanders was leading in Massachusetts, but Biden storms back and wins that state. Minnesota, 75 delegates. Senator Amy Klobuchar, that's her state. You look at the full results, guess what? Even though she got out yesterday, she probably would have lost her own state like Elizabeth Warren did. Biden beats Sanders by 9 points. Sanders had a huge rally in Minnesota. Team Sanders thought they were going to win Minnesota. No, they lose it. You go to North Carolina, Biden trounces Sanders 42.9%, 24%, 60+% of African Americans voted for Joe Biden. I think he got around 66% of the black vote in North Carolina. In Oklahoma, where Elizabeth Warren is from, Biden wins 38.7%. Warren comes in fourth at 13.4%. Tennessee, 64 delegates. Biden beats Sanders by 17 points. Now, I know sitting out there, Reverend, my man, Kenneth Whalum Jr. So the Biden camp was talking to him about hosting a town hall at his church, and they wanted me to moderate the town hall. They'd been going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, not scheduling it. And he was like, look, are y'all serious or not? Lost by 17 points. They might have wanted to spend some time. Tornado as well, but bottom line is that momentum again, and according to exit polling data, Tennessee was one of the lowest states when they said, would you vote for a socialist? Around 40, it was around 47%.
For sure.
Texas, where the Sanders campaign, they were really focused on winning there. Biden's people said, we think there's going to be an upset. Y'all, 65% of the ballots in Texas are in, 228 delegates. Biden, 31.1%. Sanders, 28.5%. Bloomberg, 16.5%, which means all three will qualify for delegates. Utah, Sanders trounces Bloomberg, 33.9 of 17.3. Biden, though, 16.4%, qualifies for delegates. Warren, 15.3%. This is the one a lot of people did not see. Biden blows Sanders out by 20 points in Virginia. 53%, 99 delegates up for grabs. Warren, 10.8, so only Biden and Sanders will be able to qualify for delegates. Vermont, of course, Sanders blows Biden out, no shocker there, by 28 points. That's his home state. But by getting 22%, Biden will get some of those 16 delegates in Vermont. American Samoa, 6 delegates. Mike Bloomberg wins 49.9% over Bernie Sanders. He will get all 6 of those delegates. When you look at this whole map here, Reese, I think every potential conventional wisdom, meaning if you got the most money, meaning if you got the most folks on the ground, meaning if you're up with TV ads, if you're blowing them out with digital ads, oh my goodness, Joe Biden can't even get 300 people at an event. Y'all didn't see Bernie has 13,000 in LA. He had 10,000 here. All the people who are tweeting all the back and forth. But what do I always say? None of that matters until real people go to the ballot box.
I agree. I mean, it's obvious that Joe Biden, I still maintain, is experiencing the greatest luck anybody probably in the history of this world has ever experienced in the past 48 hours. Because to be clear, the polling aggregated had him as not even viable in several of the states that he won tonight. There was a seismic shift in his favor when you have two people that almost entirely occupy his lane, his ideological lane, that were polling significantly enough to give him that boost, drop out, and people are panicking at that point.
But Reese, I would dispute the use of the word luck in terms of what's happened with Biden. I think that, yeah, I would, because he was working Jim Clyburn. That was going to be, Clyburn promised the networks and some other folks that he was not going to make an endorsement until the last minute. So
he said he wasn't going to make an endorsement at all.
Well,
and then he changed.
A lot of people said he was going to make one. But, luck kind of diminishes the achievement to call it luck.
You think it's an achievement, though, that two people dropped out?
Yeah, and not by his call.
I don't think
the votes he got were an achievement. I think that I've interviewed Buttigieg a couple of times, like him very much. Didn't think he was ready, frankly. But I think that he needed to drop out because he could make the numbers work. It's just like Kamala said, I don't see the path to victory.
Right.
I think with Klobuchar, she got out because if she lost her home state, she would have no props at all. Now, he didn't do that for them. But again, the word luck, strikes me as just a little dismissive of the work that he did.
But I don't think that he did any particular work. He didn't have a particularly good organization. Jim Clyburn himself said that. Representative Jim Clyburn said that he wasn't firing on all cylinders where he needed to be. I don't think that his message was particularly persuasive, but he did have, to his credit, he has a record that nobody else can rival at this point because he was President Obama's vice president, and he's well-liked. He has a lot of things working for him, but what happened in the past 24 hours is pretty much unprecedented, and he almost solely benefited from everything that happened, and that's not normal.
But Greg,
I agree.
Here's also, Greg, here's why I won't call it luck. Here's why I won't call it luck. Because
it's not luck.
It's
not his work.
No. Follow me here. It's dominoes. One thing happens that leads to multiple things happening.
Yep.
Here's the deal. South Carolina exposed the weakness of the two moderate candidates. Yeah. Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar were polling together at 2.5%.
Right.
He was at 2, she was at 0.5.
For the black vote.
For black vote.
Yes.
So here's the piece. I interviewed, according to all the stories, the Buttigieg people got together and decided after midnight Saturday night, he's dropping out. I interviewed Pete Buttigieg at 10:55 a.m. on Sunday morning.
And you did.
And he said that they were moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay? What happened was, it's a pure numbers game. They sat down and they said, if we could only do 2% among black people in South Carolina, we are going to get dusted in the rest of these states.
Right.
So what really happened was the strength of Joe Biden exposed the weaknesses. Everybody touted Buttigieg and Klobuchar when Iowa and New Hampshire voted. And people I remember, I'm not going to name the person, but Saturday night, I was at an event, and this guy was like, but why can't Joe get white voters? And I was like, player, it don't matter. Watch what's about to happen. Right. And this person was telling me I was crazy. No. So all of a sudden, 3 people got exposed. All the money Steyer spent, and them black people said, Tom, we love you, but you ain't got no shot of being president. So that one big victory wipes out 3 of the candidates. Then all of a sudden, if you want to have a future, you sitting there going, I'm a moderate. Klobuchar and Buttigieg have been killing Sanders in debates. So they were never going to endorse Sanders. I specifically asked Buttigieg about that, and he said, I'm concerned about down ballot people.
Right.
So now all of a sudden, you're Joe Biden. One critical victory.
That's it.
Exposes your strengths.
Yeah.
Exposes their weaknesses.
Yeah.
And even though Bloomberg was not on the ballot, it exposed his weaknesses.
Of course.
And now all of a sudden, here we are almost at 1 a.m. on Super Tuesday, and there's no shot that pretty much Warren will drop out, Bloomberg's going to drop out. Come Thursday morning, this is going to be a two-person race.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Hold on, Greg.
And Roland, what I would say is, well, let's start with what you said about 10 minutes ago. You're not going to predict what happens next week. Because when Warren drops out, now there's a question of what she polls her support and Sanders. We've seen Sanders consistently polling around a third. And we can ask ourselves a very basic question tonight. What really changed? Because if you take the numbers from Buttigieg and you take the numbers from Klobuchar in the white primaries, New Hampshire and Iowa, and combine them and add them to Biden's numbers, if they hadn't been in the race, and let's say that that had been the lane that Biden would have benefited from the most, then he would have beaten Bernie. In other words, Bernie's numbers look consistent tonight with what they've always been.
Right.
And of course, again, which is the reason anybody watching the election returns tonight should be watching this show. Another reason, you talked to the only reason we're talking about Joe Biden tonight, as you said, dominoes. You talked to that South Carolina Bulldog Q, the man himself, James Clyburn, who rescued the man, because when that Negro firewall kicked in, it then signaled, I'm just trying to get some of the things that people have brought up tonight, beginning with what you brought up as well, which is it signaled to the rest of the country. What did you say a minute ago? What have you been saying all night? People made up their minds in the last 24 to 48 hours.
Yep.
Once that signal went out, and blacks in Alabama, blacks in Tennessee, mind you, red states that he ain't gonna win in the primary in the election, but if he's the nominee, they say, oh, okay then. And then as the early returns came in tonight on the East Coast, Texas hadn't finished voting. If you go look, looks like he carried Houston, but he didn't carry, Biden didn't carry San Antonio and them. The Latinos, and then California gets the signal. Joe Biden, Reese, to your point, it went viral. There's a contagion dimension. There is a kind of luck dimension. But to Roland's point, the lead domino was South Carolina.
Yeah, it was a
and
domino,
all it did to conclude is expose, as you say, that the percentages that what people have been getting didn't really change tonight.
No.
Those votes, and the only other thing I would add is those down ballot races that Buttigieg claims to be interested in. One of them, it looks like Jeff Sessions is going to be in a runoff with the former football coach of Auburn. I don't know if you pull it up and look and see.
And out of those two,
yes, sir,
Jeff Sessions is the most sensible one.
Probably. No, he is.
Tommy Tuberville, his first ad was a absolute just racist ad. So, Lord, I mean, first of all, that's
why would
just
anybody
Alabama.
play football for Auburn?
Lord have mercy.
No, but I'm just saying, you see that though, right? Yes, sir.
Julian, what? Again, moving forward, I think moving forward was about to be very interesting. And when I asked in the last round, well, how do people see next? Here's where I think. Let me predict what Joe Biden's going to do. Joe Biden's going to focus on character, morals, and values. If you go read John Ward's book dealing with the 1976 race, when he said when Camelot came to an end, it was a fight between Ted Kennedy and Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter ran in 1976 on a message of restoring character and values to the White House. I said last year when I finished reading that book and I had him on the show, and in fact, this was December 2018, and I'll go ahead and say it. I sent the book, to Booker and Harris. And I said, if the person who makes character and values a point, I said, it's going to resonate. I said, don't ignore that, because there are independents out there who do not like the language that are coming from the White House.
But Roland,
who do not like it. And so Biden is sitting here looking at that. And so why everybody keep thinking this is about big structural issues?
It's not.
No. There are some. If you study Trump winning, the whole wrapping around the flag and loving the military, there's another thing that Americans have also liked: decency in politics. And and Biden, he doesn't yell. He doesn't have one tone. He has the ability to be empathetic and to connect. And I'm just saying, people better understand those are political qualities that people say, you know what? That's a nice guy.
Yes.
I'm going to vote for him. is you need to understand, for Sanders, he is going to have to make an appeal to black women. And I don't know what that's going to look like.
Well, see, the other thing about Sanders is that he hollers all the time. I mean, he has one voice tone. It looks, I mean, he reminded me when I saw him earlier today of, what was it, Howard Dean. Remember how Howard Dean had that meltdown hollering?
When actually that was actually a whole bunch of BS. It was, I mean, he wasn't really just acting a fool. Right. He was just excited. But that was national media before social media.
Yeah, exactly.
Had that happened with social media, that's like it would have got corrected like that. Yeah. But they took that and just ran with it. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
No. Anyway, what's next for Biden? I mean, I think that, as you say, someone has got to court black women. We vote, 94% of us vote Democratic.
Older black women? Because he's got a lot of black women working for him. Are you talking about older black women?
I'm talking about all black women.
Okay.
I'm talking about...
All right, I'm just asking, because I know it's a lot of black women working for Bernie Sanders.
Well, that's a good thing, but folks working does not translate into votes necessarily.
I agree.
The other thing that Biden has got to do is get a good ground game. That's what Buttigieg has. He has a ground game.
Miss Sanders.
Well, Buttigieg kind of had one.
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He had a ground game in 2 states.
Right.
Well,
in the states that he had him in, it did make an impact.
He was spent.
Yeah.
Well, but here's the deal, though. You can't have a ground game if you broke.
Yeah, exactly. And
now
he needs money.
Now,
He has
look,
resources.
after he won South Carolina,
money came in.
$5 million in 24 hours.
Right.
What you're about to see, don't think for a second. You're about to see probably the best fundraising Joe Biden's ever had. He is now going to be in that position, which is why when Clyburn made the point when he said, okay, you're going to have to change some stuff. When Clyburn said, you got to show some passion, I'm telling you, Pam, Joe Biden, I'll go back to when he, it was in New York Times. This is before he announced. I never forget, there was a line in there where Joe Biden, where they said that people close to Joe Biden said that he wanted to be assured that he was going to get the nomination. And I never forget when I read that, I said, player, you're going to have to earn this.
Right.
I think for all the people who said Michael Bloomberg should not have gotten in, I think Michael Bloomberg getting in and losing Iowa, New Hampshire woke his ass up. Joe Biden was coasting. Joe Biden was not doing lots of events. He was not calling upon people. He was sort of laying back.
He was doing the Hillary.
He had to get his... No, Hillary actually worked.
Really worked.
Yeah.
But
Hillary acted like she had it.
No, he was even worse. He wasn't even trying. He did events in Iowa where he spoke, wouldn't take questions. They were like, they know how we roll. What he now is going to have to calibrate his campaign, and that, I'm just going, easy like Sunday morning. No, you about to face a bulldog now.
Exactly.
You about to face a bulldog who's about to be even more of a bulldog.
Right.
I think a couple thoughts. First of all, I think, and I know it's unusual and perhaps unprecedented, but I think Joe Biden's strongest possible move right now is to disperse the responsibility to a team. Announce your VP. Put Pete as your Department of Defense. Put Warren as your Department of, your Treasury. To tell the people so it's not Biden against
that is exactly
or Biden's against Trump. It's the team of extraordinary Americans.
The cabinet of rivals.
And not only that, but that means that Kamala's elections powerhouse, Beto's election powerhouse, Pete is out there on the stump for him, for the team. It's restoring American leadership. And each of them bringing their best talent to the game. And
if he threw a Republican in there,
Oh, no, hell no. Oh, hell no.
I know it's not
a Republican life.
No, hell no. Let me go. No, hold on. Let me just go ahead.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that.
Hell no. Hell no.
You talking to you, Pam?
I ain't talking to you, Pam. No, hell no. I don't want to hear no Democrat.
Talking about that.
Because guess what? Republicans don't talk about that bullshit.
Nope.
Republicans like, I ain't putting no Democrat. No. This is a base election.
Right.
This is where Democrats have got to say, damn it, I ain't trying to get y'all. If y'all want to bring your ass over here, that's fine. But I ain't trying to go over there.
Right.
Joe Biden can't do that because when you make the point, I'm a Democrat, I've been a Democrat, always been, that's what you're hitting on. This is where you got to go hard, your people.
Right.
This is where you got to say, hey, that some bitch is driving us crazy, putting me in, and this is who I'm leading, and that's where he has to go. And again, what Clyburn is on it, Joe Biden, the fire Joe Biden had tonight, what I saw last night at the rally in Dallas, that's got to be every single day. He's got to go on television and say, we got to throw out this liar. We got to get rid of this man who can't be trusted, who is corrupt. He got to even say the man lied about playing golf. He said he wasn't going to play golf, and he has spent more than $400 million playing golf, ripped off the tax. You got to go there because here's the piece. Bernie ain't changing his message.
No, but
Bernie ain't recalibrating at all. But the other two people, who actually, I believe, who has the capacity to calibrate and grow, Biden. Bernie ain't gonna change.
No.
Bernie gonna be the exact person he is, and that might be to his detriment because he's got to expand his base.
And that's
Pam, then Reese.
That's the bigger question: is how does Bernie's team start to appeal? It has been a consistent narrative, and I think to some extent a little bit overblown because I think that a lot of the toxicity on social media is being advanced by bots and other interests in there. But there is a there about sort of an overly aggressive approach to some of his most zealous campaigners. It's not everybody. It's not the whole team, and sometimes it's painted that way, and I think that's unfair to him. But to be honest, he's also a leader, and he has to figure out a way to show that he's got control of that. He's bringing them in, and he's looking to welcome in new voices, not to challenge people who haven't already come to him.
Elections are about trying to get as many people as possible to vote for you. You cannot run a campaign where you got supporters who are pissing other people off. You can't look. You know, damn sure know how they've come after you. And let's just say you have not minced any words in response to them. But that's what you're dealing with. After he lost South Carolina. The crap that some of his supporters were saying was racist. Was saying these low information blacks in South Carolina. I mean, the stuff they were saying. And his team will say, look, that's 1%. We can't trust. But the reality is here. If you had to sit side by side, do you see the level of vitriol from Biden team, from Warren team, from even Bloomberg team? Ain't no comparison. The vitriol that you see on social media from Team Sanders, meaning supporters, rivals that of Trump.
Absolutely.
And that pisses
you think?
me. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about language. Hold on. Follow me here. I didn't say the whole team. What I'm saying
you didn't.
I'm saying is, when I look at, if I sit side by side, I do not see, and again, Reese, I'm going to you because you've had to deal with this. I have not seen, look, you've been hardcore Harris, but I have not seen Biden people and Warren people and Bloomberg people, even if it's a small percentage, be as vicious and nasty as I have Sanders people. And what people have to understand is, that plays a role with somebody like, man, look, y'all have pissed me off to the point that I ain't voting for him. Just share with people, again, what you've had to deal with.
I mean, it's a nightmare dealing with them, and they're very intimidating to people. I'm not intimidated because I'm not easily intimidated, but I mean, if we just talk about what happened with Pete Buttigieg, they actually had a Reddit forum where they had to give instructions to Bernie supporters on how to approach Pete supporters. And they said, delete your rats emojis. You have to go through your history, delete your rat emojis, delete your pictures, delete these kind of tweets, your snake emojis before you reach out to these people. I mean, they take it past. It's one thing to argue on policy, but when you Photoshop Pete Buttigieg's head onto a rat, or you share torture porn, which is, there should be a trigger warning for, to try to, talk about Pete's homosexuality, and it's.
Well, what happened to you?
So what happened to me? I mean, as a Kamala Harris supporter, Kamala was the #1 target of social media attacks for years, and it was always, all the Kamala is a cop stuff, but it was always just really vitriolic towards me. I have a YouTube channel, Black Women Views. I I started moderating the comments because if I say anything about Bernie, it doesn't even have to be anything negative. It was cunt, whore, bitch, everything, all the time. Sorry, I hope I can say that on your show.
There's a show called Unfiltered.
Right. Okay. And so after I got sick
Yeah.
of reading that shit. Now, I didn't have to read it as much on Twitter because, it's a little bit more open, but on YouTube, it's just a free-for-all. So I said, you know what? I have to just deactivate my comments because I don't want to go through 20 comments of being called a bitch and a whore because I said something that's my prerogative to say as a black woman. I can say whatever the hell I want to say about anybody, period. And now I'm going to be called out of my name by all these freaking assholes on Twitter? No, absolutely not. And so those are the levels. It doesn't silence me. It doesn't intimidate me. But it's disgusting to read that over and over again.
It's disturbing.
And it could go on. If I turn off the comments on one video, it would be on 5 videos until they wanted me to know that I was this. So that's the kind of stuff that you have to deal with the Bernie supporters.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just, nobody should put up with that.
Right.
Right.
I think that, of course, our friends in the Ukraine and China and everywhere else, I have no doubt that some of that's algorithm related.
Exactly.
I have no doubt that some of it is actually human beings.
It's a lot of it is human beings.
I have no idea how you or me or anybody else could determine which was which, but I'm assuming that there are mechanisms for doing that, and I think that Facebook, that YouTube, that Twitter, that all social media should be required by law to trace that to see, because some of this stuff is beyond hate speech.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm saying that in this moment we're in, and this is where I say, of course, Bernie's not going anywhere. We look at the delegate count tonight. It's only about a couple of dozen separating them, and Texas, California isn't in. So with all the conversation after all this time, we're still not talking about a huge lead for either of them.
Nope.
Bernie's not going anywhere. It could very well be we get to the Democratic convention with no nominee, the real broker convention, and then, Pam, what you brought up, I think, is really the only way Joe Biden puts himself in a position to win this election.
Yeah.
And that is to recede from being the guy. He's clearly not capable temperamentally, intellectually, his age, his diminishing mental facilities, whatever you want to say. He's not, and let's just be candid. This is unfiltered.
Gotta be clear.
He's not Obama, he never was. When he won in South Carolina, it's the first primary he ever won in the presidential campaign, 3 times trying. But if he puts together that broad coalition, and if he is the nominee, before they get to Milwaukee, he's got to have a conversation with Bernie Sanders and Nina Turner and Bree Joy and those younger black women who worked with Sanders and all those kids who busted their asses at the HBCUs for the Sanders campaign, because I don't know any other campaign that did it.
Actually, he did. Well, according to Jason Johnson, he's had an extensive HBCU.
You talking about Bernie?
Biden.
Oh, well, yeah.
No. In terms of...
Well, Brother my good friend Jason Johnson, perhaps to do a little bit more reporting, because what I saw on the ground from Tennessee State and other places was Bernie's people, even Howard. I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying this. Is there somebody who is who's Bernie affiliated, who can be the bridge? It might be AOC. It might be Ayanna Pressley coming back to the squad and getting Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and AOC, and they become part of that coalition you talking about, Pam. If Sanders is not going to be the nominee, there's got to be a way to stitch all that in. I don't know.
What you just said and what Pam said.
Yes.
Here's actually what Biden does.
Okay.
If he, before the convention, because normally what happens is after you win the nomination, you announce who your VP is, and then you go to the convention. Let's say you go through March, and then let's say you get to April. If you're Biden and you announce your VP then, first of all, I don't think he doesn't have to do a cabinet. He doesn't have to. I think what you do
But it would help, I think.
No. Here's why. Because first of all, what that now does is, now what then begins to happen, media begins to vet, are you good enough? So now all of a sudden the focus is off of you.
No question.
All he has to do is announce a VP pick, because here's what it also does. It also, I go back to 2000. Bush v. Gore is tied. Gore, people are fighting it. Bush goes, we won, act like we won.
Right.
So what happens is you look presidential. Because, like, I'm sorry, y'all do whatever y'all want to, but we going to act like we won.
That's right.
And so that's exactly what you do. I think if he does that, what he is also signaling is, I'm the nominee.
That's true.
But Sanders can do it as well.
No, he can, but he won't. I'm the nominee. I'm moving on, because here's the other piece. Sanders has already said whoever's my VP nominee has to support Medicare for all.
Yeah, he has
The
said
difference
that.
between Sanders and Biden Biden will accept somebody who's a VP nominee who differs with him on issues. Sanders is not going to pick a nominee who is at odds with him on issues. And again, I just believe, looking at the two and just studying these campaigns, Sanders is so locked into his position, he offers no room for any level of compromise, and that is going to be the difference between how people support him or Biden. Final comments.
Supporters. How do you get his supporters? Because you need those Sanders supporters.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. If you go back to 2016, a lot of his people were pissed off with Hillary. She had 3 million more votes than he did.
Yeah.
She only lost by 78,000.
Right.
So the reality is, polling data shows 25% of Bernie supporters are going to vote for Trump anyway. So once you start breaking down the data, and now if I start going back to these numbers right here, when you look at these numbers, okay, and in the states where Biden is winning, you're seeing massive turnout.
Right.
What you're actually seeing is that, Bernie, you're not the one who's actually turning them out.
Right.
So it's you gotta treat it very carefully. But I think out of the two candidates, who is likely going to recalibrate, offer more unifying message, and who's not going to shit on the other person's candidates, supporters, I think it's going to be Biden.
Yes.
I think that's what's going to put him over the top. Sanders just will not recalibrate. He ain't going to do it. I want final round of comments. I'm going to go Pam first, then I'm coming back to Julian. Go.
I think you're probably right that he's not going to recalibrate, but he's not a stupid man, and he has smart people around him. And
yes.
And I do believe that they're going to start to think about, okay, what's our next trajectory? Maybe they bring Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez into the mix because she's wildly talented.
Right.
She's already out there as a surrogate. Maybe there's another role that she can have that can maybe bridge the gap with women of color. There may be others out there. Ilhan Omar is one that they're going to take a look at this. They're very smart people, and they're actually really decent people, and they're very, very passionate about trying to change the status quo for the people who are really left behind in our politics.
But you got to remember, he lost in 2016 because he got crushed in the South.
Agreed.
He has got...
Agreed, but...
Georgia hasn't voted. Louisiana hasn't
Florida
voted.
And many others.
Florida hasn't voted. He cannot... Again, I go back to exposing weakness, what happened with South Carolina.
Right.
What Biden is doing tonight is furthering exposing Sanders' weakness among African Americans. And even though he's doing better, Pam, he cannot afford again to get crushed in the South, because what it's signaling is, bro, we ain't with you.
Right, and I'm not suggesting that he's going to be able to turn that over overnight. I'm not suggesting that, but what I am saying is that he does have a machine. He does have an incredible social media presence. He does have some really core policy ideas that, if were framed maybe a little bit differently, I think a lot of people would buy into. I think you are right. We are seeing a galvanization around Joe Biden. My candidate, Elizabeth Warren, underperformed, and disappointingly so, because I think she was so much the substance,
Right.
so much the heart and the empathy, the talent, the experience, just a workhorse, a person who actually puts in the work. It's not fluff with her. She actually absorbs the information, and she considers race issues in all aspects of her platform.
But she's gone.
But she did underperform tonight. And so to me, there's a question of what happens to the people who supported her and where they dispersed. And I think the next week is going to be very, very tough.
Julian, here are these southern states that Sanders has to be concerned with. Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana. Even though it's not a southern state, Missouri.
Dred Scott.
He's got to be concerned about Illinois.
Yeah.
Black folks in Chicago and Cook County. So I can skip Indiana. Okay. Now when you talk about Pennsylvania, now when you talk about New York State, okay. Bottom line, I'm telling you, Bernie is going to have to do better with black people, specifically black women.
He does.
And that, I'm reflecting Congressman Clyburner's comment about how he decided to endorse Biden. And it came from, as he put it, an older black woman. Both Biden and Bernie need to pay more attention to black women, because we basically hold the power in our vote. it's challenging to see how hard we come out for the Democratic Party and how little it does
comes for us.
I mean, I can't tell the whole story, but there was a sister who was trying to do a conference for black women, approached the party, asked for low five figures, about 20 grand. They said no. So she went and raised some money herself. But they need to, all the players need to go out of their way to make sure that black women feel included.
Right, and not
Reese.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that Joe Biden had an incredible night. I give him 100% credit for that. Don't get me wrong. I think that people should not rest on his probably extraordinary, once-in-a-lifetime type of momentum that you can get from this stampede that's happened to him. He has work to do to improve. Bernie has his limitations because he is very stubborn. He does kind of seem to have a ceiling. He doesn't seem like he has an appetite to broaden his base. But I just hope that that the Biden camp understands that the stakes are higher than ever. There's nobody else there's no Amy Pete rivalry. There's no Warren Bloomberg rivalry. It's just those two likely that we'll see tomorrow going forward, and he has to deliver.
Greg, final comment.
I agree. I would say that tonight really comes as no surprise. The South Carolina's Negro Firewall moved the black vote, and the consolidation of the vote has the candidates at the percentage ideologically they would have been. I agree with y'all. It was Elizabeth Warren. I think she was about an order of magnitude. By far, the most superior ideas and policy person by far. And when you put the ignorance of the American voter generally together with sexism, she is going to be out of this race. I think finally that Bernie Sanders is by far the best policy person remaining in this race. And if people were to say his ideas are outlandish, I would suggest they go back to the 1930s and 40s and look at the New Deal. And Franklin Roosevelt would have been crucified as a communist for suggesting a federal pension, for suggesting federal deposit insurance, for suggesting something as outlandish as the federal government paying people. And that's what the Works Progress Administration was. So that I think that finally we've got to figure out a way now going forward to get that momentum that Bernie Sanders had, and those young people, generationally. We keep talking about black women, but again, I can't overstress the fact that I've seen a lot of these younger black women in the Sanders campaign, and not just black women, other non-white people. And I'm saying, if those young people stay at home, and Donald Trump puts together his nationalist coalition and they get it close enough to steal again Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or Michigan, we could be looking at 4 more years. And last thing I'll say is, Roland, you say this all the rest of the time. If Trump gets 4 more years and they finish these judges, we're going to look at a very different country. We cannot afford to lose this election.
If he gets
So my final comments, folks. So my final comments here. I'll start this way. Give me a shot of this art piece down here. It's to my left. One down here. Shot down here. Give me a shot. All right, go down. Go down. Keep going down. Keep going down. You know, go. Point down. Zoom in. Zoom in. Zoom in on remember to vote. Keep zooming in on remember to vote. Folks, that right there, explain tonight. All we have heard for the past 6, 9 months, 10 months, polling, what prognosticators say, oh my goodness, so-and-so had a great fundraising month, they're in the lead, all of those different things along those lines. We heard everything that we heard. But what happened tonight is what happened on Saturday. When the people decide, stuff changes. That's exactly what happened in this campaign here. The race is not over. Nobody has won enough delegates to get to 1,991. But the reality is this here. I hope y'all in other states are ignoring all the noise where you are making your own choices. You're likely by Thursday are going to have 2 choices. Senator Bernie Sanders or Vice President Joe Biden. Those are likely going to be your 2 choices. Moving forward, African Americans are going to play a critical role in whoever the nominee is going to be. Julianne made the point about black women. Absolutely, they're going to be critical because it's not an issue of just percentages, but they also turn out more than any other group in America. But Greg made the point about young voters, and that's also important. I have said not to diss young voters, not to make them feel small, but bitching and moaning and tweeting is not voting.
That's right. That's right.
You can call somebody a boomer as a way of being condescending and throwing shade, but guess what? That means nothing. Because you know what boomers do? They vote. My parents are 72. My dad will be 73 in April, mom 73 in November. They were up at 5. They were actually up. They were not up at 5 o'clock this morning. They were actually at the polls at 5 this morning because they work the polls. My dad just sent me a text. They'll get home at 11:30, which means that my parents put in 16 hours a day working the polls. What y'all got to understand is that older folks vote.
Yes, sir.
You could talk about them like a dog. You could say they don't know anything. You could try to call them low information voter. But every survey that you read, white, black, Asian, Latino, Native American, atheist, gay, straight, don't matter. Do you know who vote in the largest numbers? Older Americans. Because, see, they understand what not voting means. Moving forward, you can't sit your ass at home and say, I want to see change, but I don't want to do anything about it. Now is the time for people of conscience to use the power of their vote. And for those of you who are idiots who say it doesn't matter, you a dumbass. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Because voting is a part of our way to create change. Then we have to make them do what we want to do. So we'll be following the results next week. And if we capture that, move towards the convention in July. But I can guarantee you right now, the race that we now have is not what people thought it was going to be just 2 weeks ago. And that's what happens when black people show y'all how to do this. One, they knew how to count in South Carolina, Iowa. They were also diverse, New Hampshire. And maybe the Democratic Party, the Republican Party now realizes that with America changing demographically, you might want to stop having lily white states. Start this whole thing off. Because maybe other candidates have a better shot if diverse states win first, as opposed to Iowa and New Hampshire. We'll have a full breakdown tomorrow on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I won't say tomorrow. I'll actually say later today. This is past midnight. We certainly thank all of you for watching our Super Tuesday coverage. We want to thank all of our panelists who came through today, being a part of this great night. We started, almost 5.5 hours ago. Certainly want to thank all the folks on our staff for making this possible as well. And so, please support what we do by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com to ensure that we're independent, black-owned, and that way we stay unfiltered and unapologetically black. I'll see y'all guys later.